Hey guys. Part 5 of What If Naruto was sealed and woke up after 2000 years. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are paid, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 16, Colony Survival 101. Location: Pharaohs. Equalizing interior pressure with exterior atmosphere, the Normandy's 6 announced through the intercom as Naruto and his team waited. They had arrived on Pharaohs a few minutes ago, and were now trying to get ashore. The hissing of the outer door opening told them that it was done. Logged, the commanding officer is ashore. XO Presley has the deck, the 6 finished. Time to play the game, Naruto thought as he stepped onto the planet. As they came out onto the dock proper, someone waved them down. Hey, over here! He shouted from farther down the dock. Who the hell is that guy? Rex wondered aloud, staring at the person. It was a colonist, that much was easy to tell, and just by his clothes too, and a male one at that. He practically looked dead on his feet, swaying slightly from side to side. Why don't we go find out? Naruto asked in reply, heading to the colonist. He was glad to be wearing his usual clothes now. Wearing armor still felt uncomfortable to him. He felt like a turtle waddling around in a shell that wasn't his. We saw your ship come in, the colonist said without preamble as they approached him. FAI Dan wants to speak with you immediately. Who's FAI Dan? The blonde asked. He's our leader, the leader of the colony. He needs your help to stop the Geth from making another push against us. Where do we go? Ashley asked him. They were only in the docks, yet the place looked empty. Not only that, the place wasn't in good condition. There was rubble all over the place. That did not put a good feeling in her. Up the stair past the freighter, he answered her, pointing behind himself with his thumb. But when he turned to look at where he was pointing, his eyes widened in surprise. Oh shit! Take COV. He never finished the sentence as a bullet blew a hole through his head. The others went for cover either behind rubble that had fallen onto the dock or up against the side. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that would be the Geth, Rex said over the sound of gunfire. What tipped you off? Gurus asked, crouched up against a large chunk of rubble. He had his rifle prepped. If he had a shot, he could take it. How many are there? Naruto asked the person closest to him, who happened to be Ashley. She took a quick peek beyond the rubble. I think about 5 or so, sir, she answered him. But there's also one coming straight at us. He quickly pulled out a kunai and breathed a futon jutsu onto it. He stood up and threw it at the approaching Geth, ducking back down fast. The kunai sailed through the air, but the Geth lifted its gun and shot it to pieces. That was something he hadn't seen before. I think the Geth are getting smarter, he remarked. Permission to try something, sir? Asked Ashley. The way she stared at him, it was like she was unsure of what he would think. You think she's going to ask you to take her now? Shikaka asked with a suggestive grin on his face. His remark, however, earned him glares from the other 8 Biju. That was uncalled for, Shikaku, Koko told him. Come on, time and place, Gyuki said. To his credit, Shikaka looked sheepishly embarrassed. Their Jinchuriki, however, ignored them. You don't need my permission, Ash. Just get to it already, he ordered her. She nodded once and put her rifle away. As the others kept their fire up, she carefully folded her hands into a sequence of hand seals he had never seen before. Right-un, coterie, lightning style, small bird, she whispered, holding out her hands. Lightning quickly coursed through her arms, racing up to her cupped hands. There, it transformed into a little, almost tiny bird. It didn't stay in her hands. Instead, it fluttered up out past the rubble. If the Geth did see the bird made of lightning, it didn't pay any attention to it. That was its downfall. The bird lightly touched its arm and disappeared into a flash of lightning. The Geth went completely still as arcs of lightning coursed through its metallic body. It finally went dead, its headpiece drooping forward, almost down to the ground. It soon went flying over the edge when Caden threw his biotics at it. What was that? Tali demanded of Ashley, staring at her in surprise as the firefight raged on. She had never seen a Geth get taken out like that before. Then again, she had seen quite a few different ways to take out a Geth recently. Just a jutsu I knew, she replied like it was nothing, taking out her rifle again and started shooting again. It was all she could do to keep shooting, as her jutsu had taken more chakra than she had originally thought. She should have expected that. She hadn't really used it much before. Whatever it was, it showed that the Geth are vulnerable to right-on jutsu, Naruto said after throwing a shuriken at one of the Geth further down the path. It was covered in wind chakra and effortlessly sliced the gun it was holding in half, as well as the rest of the Geth. I don't suppose you know any of those, do you? Geras asked him, crouching down against his piece of rubble. He tried to take out one of the remaining Geth, but couldn't line up a decent shot. He had to duck in order to avoid getting his head shot off. We really don't have time for that, Quan Misli said from where she was standing against the opposite rail from the Thorian. She was trying to shoot down the Geth that were positioned around the turn. But they knew what she was trying to do and promptly deployed energy shields to stop her. Hey boss! Maya shouted at Naruto. She was close to the hunter, trying to shoot the Geth beyond the turn, but she was having as much luck as Quan Misli. Any chance you can help us out here? We still have to deal with the Geth in front of us, Rex told the swagman. He was the only person among them who wasn't trying to use the railing or a piece of rubble as cover. Instead, he was using a biotic shield and standing right behind it. Once the shield was completely depleted, would he go for cover? Until then, he would use the opportunity to fire off good shots at the Geth. He's right, Commander, Caden said, agreeing with the battlemaster. The Geth the two were talking about were blocking the turn of the path to them. There were only a few of them there, but it was enough to moving forward a little difficult. Fortunately, Naruto didn't have any problems with things being a little difficult. Without saying a word, he moved forward, going from cover to cover. It paid off within minutes, as he was closer to the blocking Geth. An added bonus was that they were still focused on the others rather than him. Futon, Detapa, Wind Style, great breakthrough. He flashed through the familiar hand seals and breathed out the jutsu. 3 of the 4 Geth were hit by the jutsu, smashing into the wall behind them. The 4th one was only clipped by the jutsu's edge, which only made it stumble back a few paces. Its headpiece was shot through, courtesy of Ashley. Let's move it, people! She shouted at everyone. They all moved forward, joining their leader and finishing the fight. The Geth were waiting for them. Just as Naruto's team reached him, the Geth who had been carrying the missiles opened fire. Incoming! Liara screamed, seeing the missiles flying toward them at top speed. In that moment, she knew it would be too late to throw up a shield and was certain that this was it. But Naruto had other ideas. Shikaku, sand! He mentally ordered the Tanuki. And here I thought you would never ask, the Ichibi declared happily. The blonde lifted his hands in a gesture he had seen an old friend do so many times. The wall where the previous Geth had smashed into burst apart. It formed into sand, flew to his team, and immediately formed a large shield. Not 2 seconds later, the missiles slammed into it. Everyone who had read the history books, which was all of them, could only stare in shock at the wall of sand before them. But he wasn't done yet. Sabaku Soso, Sand Waterfall Funeral, the blonde said with a snarl on his lips. The wall of sand flew towards the remaining Geth and engulfed them before they could do anything. When he folded his hands into fists, the cocoons instantly shrunk. The sound of metal being crushed to pieces filled the dock as the remaining Geth were destroyed. When the blonde dropped his hands with the breath he had been holding in, the 6 cocoons of sands fell to the floor, showing what remained of the Geth. Was that what I think it was? Maya asked her commander. Now is not the time for that, he said shortly, moving forward past the destroyed Geth. The others quickly went after him. This time, the unit had reached the destination before its charge. There had been several more enemies lying in wait. The unit took most of them out from a distance as the Normandy landed. While it could have taken them all out, a consensus was reached to leave some alive. That way, the charge would not become suspicious. The unit watched the firefight from an alcove at the back of the dock. It was an optimal position to observe its charge landing and the ensuing fight. The sand was a surprise. The unit had not known its charge had that ability. Were there other abilities the unit was not aware of? If that was the case, more observation was needed. They left the dock and were about to climb the stairs when he saw a Geth fly by and attached itself to one of the walls. All their guns instantly pointed at it. Oh great, a hopper! Geras complained. They had been a pain in the ass when the team went to save Liara. Tali felt his pain but didn't complain. Just shoot it, she told him. Everyone opened fire, even Naruto, thanks to practicing with his pistol. The problem was that the hopper was much faster than the last one they fought. It seemed to move the moment a gun was pointed at it. Naturally, this was very annoying. Is it possible for this damn thing to stay still? Liara asked aloud, getting more frustrated as she kept shooting and missing. While she wasn't a great shot, she still had a good handle on her biotics, and she was missing even with that. As if to answer her question, a shot rang out in the air and the geth they were trying to shoot down fell off the wall it was sticking to. Another shot sounded off and a second geth, which had been higher up on the staircase, fell to the ground. As they all stared at the two dead geth in surprise, the sound of boots hitting ground echoed from above. An old man stood at the top of the staircase, holding a shotgun in his hands. "Y'all need to stop shooting at where the critter is and start shooting at where it's going to be," he told them, hefting the shotgun onto his shoulder. His eyes scanned them over. Garish shuddered when they fell on him. Those old brown eyes looked at him with a lot of hate. "Who the hell are you?" Rex demanded, pointing his shotgun at the man. The human looked old, but that didn't mean he wasn't dangerous. The gun he carried was well maintained and loved, just like that hat he wore. "What's it called again? A Stetson?" the Krogan asked himself. "Whatever. Not worth the time to ponder." "I should be asking you that question, considering you're the ones making all the noise," he replied. He hadn't moved an inch, but Naruto could tell that he was ready for a fight. His posture just screamed it. "Now where's David?" "Who's David?" Maya asked, slightly confused. "The kid that was sent to bring y'all in." "Oh." Her face fell when she realized that was what he meant. "The geth." She trailed off, unsure of how to say it. The old man frowned. He didn't like the look on her face. "The geth what?" he asked. "The geth shot him in the head," Rex said bluntly. The old man scowled and spat off to the side. "Damn it, I told FAI Dan that he shouldn't have gone by himself," he muttered to himself. The others could still hear him. "David told us that FAI Dan wanted our help against the geth," Tali told him. She found herself keeping her back straight, like she was standing at attention. The old man kind of reminded her of her father, which, in her book, was not a good thing, and was making her nervous. Yeah, he wanted that. The old man turned to head back up the staircase. "Well, come on." They followed him up the staircase. Ashley stepped over rubble littering the stairs. Even though the structure was firm, it still had parts blown off. There had been fighting done here before they came. "So, you got a name? Or should we just stick to calling you old guy?" she asked. He looked back, his eyes staring straight at her from beneath his Stetson. "The name's Al," he replied shortly, turning back to where they were going. "Cheerful guy," she remarked. "You did sound rather rude," Caden told her. He was too. Plus, there was something about the guy that just made her stomach feel uneasy. Like she should be weary of the man, but she didn't know why. He did seem familiar, in some way. "Pipe down back there," Naruto told the two of them without looking back. "Let's try to keep things positive here." The last thing they needed was to be chased off of the planet because they insulted the wrong person. "Sorry, sir," the two of them replied. They all reached the top of the staircase. Al turned to the right, going into a short tunnel. He turned right again at the end and they came out into the open. What was in front of them were a couple of barricades and a few colonists wielding guns behind them. "It's Al," one of the colonists said, relief sagging his shoulders and making him lower his gun. The move made the old man scowl. "Keep that weapon up," Al barked at the colonist, making him flinch away. "You want to get shot by the geth?" "No, sir." "Sorry, sir," the colonist yelped. He brought the gun back up into a position he could fire from. "Good. Now get in there and make sure there aren't any stragglers." He jutted his thumb into the tunnel that he and the others had just come out of. "But I thought that those tunnels were safe," he protested. "If that was the case, David wouldn't be dead," the old man told him. "Now get!" He jutted his thumb a second time to emphasize his point. "Yes, sir." Both he and the colonist next to him quickly came out from behind their barricade and into the tunnel, moving past him and Naruto's team. "Goddamn civilians can't take a shit unless you tell them to," Al muttered to himself as he walked past the barricades. Liara glanced back at the colonists. They seemed scared. You don't need to be so harsh to them, she tried to tell him as she and the others followed him into the colony. Better to be harsh than dead, missy, he snapped at the young Asari, keeping his eyes forward. You would be a wise woman to remember that, unless you'd rather be shot up as well. Her face flushed in embarrassment. She hadn't really been told off like that in a long time. What made it worse was the fact that she understood what he was trying to say. Sorry, she muttered, not even looking at the man. Hey, go easy on her, Naruto said to Al. She still thinks like a civilian. Then why is she here? He asked back. Because I don't have any other scientists who know a lot about the Protheans on hand, the blonde answered, only getting a grunt in return. As he walked, he took a look around the colony. The place looked like it had been hit pretty hard. There was rubble lying off to the sides of what could be called the street they were walking in through, which meant that the colonists were trying to clean up a little. But other than that, the place was a wreck. He wasn't the only who had noticed all this. Hey, why are all these people laying around out here? Gurus asked, looking at the people who just sitting or lying down on the ground. They weren't in the way of people walking, but they were still there and they looked like they were holding wounds closes. We don't the space or the needs for them, Al said shortly. We ran out of the latter long before we ran out of the former. His words chilled most of the people in the team. The only exceptions were Quan Misli, Rex, Maya, and Naruto. All four of them had been in that same situation before. And while the Krogan couldn't have given two shits about the colony, the humans thought differently. This place needs help, Quan Misli quietly stated as they went around a set of prefab buildings, which looked like they had been damaged a little. Yeah? Asked Al. We've been trying to get that for some time now. And what do we get? He spat off to the side. We get you lot. If that's the case, we will help, Naruto assured him. Just tell us what to do. Ask him. He pointed to a nearby man talking to a woman. They were both standing near what looked to be the edge of the colony. Hey, FAI Dan, the supposed cavalry has arrived, the old man called out. The man known as FAI Dan turned to where Al's voice had called out from. Oh, Commander Naruto, he said when he saw the blonde, relief shining on his face. By the love of the mountain, I'm glad you've come. You know me? The blonde had to ask, surprised by the fact. Your acceptance into the Spectres was broadcast across the galaxy, he answered. Every human who had a screen had seen it. Wow. It was the only thing he could think to say. Actually, he felt a little embarrassed by that little statement. He kinda wanted to grin sheepishly and scratch the back of his head. Don't you dare do that, Kurama told his Jinchuriki, having seen that last thought. You have an image to protect now, damn it. You cannot act sheepish anymore. Since when have you given a shit about my image? The blonde asked back. Since you had one. So, about 5 seconds ago, is that what you mean? Gyurki asked the Kyuubi with a grin. Some of the other Bijus snickered at the comment. But the Spectre didn't find it funny. For the love of Kami, Kurama, you sound like Udina. I already have one nagging person on my back, I don't need another. He was positive that the ambassador to the council was determined to find everything he did wrong on a mission or what he did, period. And he was also certain that with every mission report he would turn in, he would get a nagging email from the ambassador. You're a little late for someone so famous, the woman next to FAI Dan said bitterly. Now isn't the time for that, Arcelia. FAI Dan told her sharply. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but kept silent. Sorry about that, Commander, he told Naruto apologetically. Things have been on edge ever since. Al, who had been standing quietly and keeping a lookout, suddenly shifted his shotgun back into his hands and opened fire. The shot sailed out of the barrel, through the air, and struck the Geth that was coming out of the nearby exit, all in the time that the sound of the bullet firing echoed throughout the colony. Geth coming from the tower! He shouted for all to hear. Protect the heart of the colony! FAI Dan shouted loudly as nearby colonists ran towards them, weapons in their hands. Naruto held out a hand at them, making them stop. Wait a minute. I'll take care of it, he said just as loudly. Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu. Clones appeared out of the vast smoke cloud that surrounded him. He briefly noticed the stunned colonists before turning his attention back to the fight. Charge! Bellowed the blonde. With a roar, his clones did as they were ordered. Everyone who could see it just watched as the horde swept into the tower, pushing back any Geth that they had seen. Kage no Guntai indeed, Maya said with an impressed voice. Naruto grimaced at that. Why couldn't they have come up with a better name? He asked himself. Because your attention was solely on your work when the name was given and you didn't protest, the Kyuubi reminded him. Oh, right, he thought glumly. For a brief moment, he wondered how many things would have been different if he hadn't been so focused on his work. That moment disappeared when he banished that thought from his mind. Earth was better off because of what I did, he reminded himself. And how would you know that exactly? Sun asked him. It wouldn't be under the control of the infinite Tsukuyomi. That had been the entire purpose of his work, even the purpose of the war, to stop Obito from casting that jutsu onto the moon and enslaving the human race. If he had to do it all again, he wouldn't change a single second of it. How's it coming, kid? Al asked him. They could all hear the sounds of guns being fired and jutsu being used inside the tower, but that was it. But it was the old man's last word that got his attention. Kid? Repeated the specter, turning to face the old man. Yeah, kid, Al repeated himself, not seeing anything wrong with what he said. The blonde looked like he was in his 20s. That was a kid to him. How is it coming? It's going fine, he finally said after a couple moments of silence. He decided to let the comment pass. But the Biju inside his head were currently sniggering, on their way to laughing. He called you a kid, the Nanabai said, trying to hold it in and almost failing in that effort. It's not that funny, he protested. He hadn't been called a kid since the war had started. Hell, he hadn't been called a kid since he came back from his training trip with Jiraiya. No one had called him a kid in the longest time. For the love of Kami, he hadn't been called a kid since he had been unsealed. Yes, it is, Shikaka said, giggling. He seemed to think that anything happening to the blonde was funny. It could have been worse, Kurama commented, getting the attention of the other 8 Biju and their Jinchuriki. He could have called you shrimp. How could he call me that? His head reaches my shoulder. But his words, as well as the fox's, had sent the rest of the Biju over the edge into laughter. He was quite certain that a few of them had even fallen over. It's not that funny, he shouted at them all. Sometimes, he just didn't get their sense of humor. The sounds of battle started to fade away. It wasn't straight off the bat, but a gradual thing, becoming fainter and fainter as the seconds crawled past. It finally went silent for a moment. Then a ship rose up from the tower and flew away, retreating from the tower and the colony. Well, there they go, Quan Misli said simply. They'll be back, Fai Dan told her, sorrow in his voice. They always come back. Then you need to shore up your defenses, Rex told the man with complete bluntness. Or were you just planning to let the Geth come in and kill you all? I would never let that happen, he replied fiercely. These are my people. I would not let anything happen to this colony. Whoa, Dan, take it easy, Al told him, a little surprised to see him speak like that. I thought you mountain people were supposed all calm and peaceful like. Everyone just looked at him once he said those words. Then the anger and fierceness went out of Fai Dan. That would be the monks you're talking about, Al. I was just born there. The old man shrugged his shoulders. Okay. But the fact remains the same, you need to make the colony last longer. Well, what can we do then? The leader of the colony asked him. Again, he shrugged his shoulders. Don't ask me, I've done the best I could with your colonists in defending themselves. But Westplain men have always been out on the fields in a fight, not on the walls. Ashley swung her gaze at him. I know that name, she said, staring intently at the old man. You're Albert Westplain, the one who led the Kalbas on Shangshi. He turned to her, his eyes narrowing. How do you know that name, girl? He asked her in a quiet voice. Naruto had noticed that his hands had shifted once again, readying the shotgun. You knew my grandfather, she told him, an edge forming in her voice. You were there, right next to the shinobi forces, when the Kalbas broke and ran. Where there was an edge was now a snarl. But he was not offended by her words or the snarl. If anything, he was surprised by it. How in the name of... He trailed off, looking at her. He squinted, trying to examine her more closely. When he saw what he was looking for, the squint disappeared and the eyes widened ever so slightly. I see. You're his granddaughter. You're damn right I am. There was fire in her eyes as she spoke, the snarl becoming more and more obvious. I was there, girl, he said to her. I saw what had happened. He sounded sad and tired, like he had this conversation many times before. She didn't care about that. It only happened because you ran. The snarl almost became a growl at those words. It was obvious that something was going on with Ashley, and not a good thing. When Naruto heard the snarl and saw the fire in her eyes, he knew he had to step in. Now isn't the time for this, he announced, getting everyone's attention. Ashley, whatever you've got against this guy, leave it until the mission is done, he ordered her. But sir, she tried to protest. I said leave it, he repeated, scowling at her. His voice was firm and would have no argument. Try as she might, she couldn't hold his gaze. Yes, sir, she finally said. Thank you. He turned back to Al and FAI Dan. So, what can we do to help the colony? He asked the two of them. They looked at one another, then at him. We've got a couple of turrets lying around that we could use, if we had the right kind of power cells, Al finally told him. I've got a ship. We may have a few power cells we could lend, he offered. Do you even know if that's true? Matatabi asked him. The Nibby knew that he didn't know the specifics of the ship, like if they had power cells to spare. He was learning, but he still didn't know. It's a little late to be wondering that right now, he replied. If we don't, I'll just have to ask Anderson how we can spare some. Not one of his better ideas, but the colony needed help and he could give it. His idea was quickly shot down. Unfortunately, your ship is the top of the line and would have the wrong kind of power cells, Arcelia told him. You'll have to scavenge a few up from on planet. Oh, I see. Inside of his mind, he could hear the 9 Biju breathe a sigh of relief. What was that sigh about? He asked them. It was about being glad that you didn't go somewhere stupid and problematic with your offer, Kurama told him. As I remember, you used to do that quite a lot, especially on your little trip with Jiraiya. Had that been any other time and if he had been alone, he probably would have either winced or flinched visibly. There were quite a few things on that trip that were embarrassingly dumb in hindsight. We are not talking about that, he said silently. Do you need those turrets up and running? He asked the colonists, ignoring his tenants, especially the smirking fox. It's not just for the turrets, FAI Dan said. We need those cells for the generator. Without the generator, we're likely to be in for some cold nights and no power ahead. That'll probably kill us faster than the Geth. Plus, the turrets are Mustangs, Al added in. They may be a bit old, but they're dependable. We could use them in any upcoming fights. You've got Mustang turrets? Kaden asked. Did you need your ears cleaned out, boy? He asked the biotic soldier, snapping at him. If you heard me the first time, why bother asking a second? Sorry, he said to the cowboy, embarrassed. Ashley scowled for her friend but didn't say anything. I take it that those are good turrets? Naruto asked. He had no idea if they were or not, but the others were making it sound like they were. And it was always a good idea to be sure. Ashley was the one who answered. A Mustang turret hasn't been top of the line for about 10 or so years. But they're still reliable and often preferred than what comes out nowadays. Yeah, some say the Mustang was the best turret cold steam weaponry ever created, Maya chimed in. It's not just the generator and turrets we need to worry about, Arcelia told them all, getting their attention. It never is, Saiken remarked. There was always one more problem to deal. He had seen a lot of things follow that pattern. We're low on food rations and the water isn't working, she continued. If we don't get those problems fixed, the Geth will just have to wait for us to die of thirst and hunger. That'll make it much easier for them. The sarcasm in her voice at that last sentence was enough to cut steel. They could all hear it. Is there anything we can do about that? Naruto asked her. She shrugged her shoulders. Don't ask me. Ask the people in charge of the food and the water. She looked up over the wall, up at sky. And you might want to make it quick, the sun's about to set. You don't want to be out in the dark. She's right, Tali agreed. That's prime hunting time for the Geth. We still need to get rid of the Geth in the tunnels, Arcelia, Al told her. Otherwise, they'll be able to sneak past what meager defenses we have on this side and attack us from the dockside. That's how David got killed. Well, unless you plan on going into the tunnels and looking for their transmitter, there's nothing we can do about them, she replied. Arcelia, Al, we can't afford to get angry with one another, FAI Dan told them, stopping the intense staring contest they were having. Then I guess my team and I have some work to do. Naruto said, looking at said team for a brief moment before looking back at the three colonists. Who do we talk to? The unit was able to reach a vantage point over the colony where it wouldn't be seen. It was able to see everything in the colony, which meant it was able to see its charge. The attack on the tower was impressive, in terms of overwhelming numbers. Yet the unit knew that its charge was holding back. It knew that if its charge had gone into the tower alone, with no clones, it still would have emerged victorious. As it listened in on its charge as it moved through the colony and talked to the colonists, the unit took note of the priorities that were forming. The colony would need food, water, their generator back on, and an enemy transmitter needed to be destroyed. All of which were located in the tunnels beneath the tower. The unit quickly scanned the underground. There were still enemy geths scattered through the tunnels, too many for its charges team. Correction would be needed. The unit scanned the tower and found a secondary entrance. It could use that to reach the tunnels first, eliminate the problem before it hindered the charge. It would have to move fast in order to avoid detection. How exactly did I get chosen for this job? Maya asked aloud as her group of three walked down a set of tunnels. After checking in with the three people in charge of water, food, and the generator, their commander split the team into three groups. One would turn the water mains back on, the second would destroy the geth transmitter, and the third would get the power cells. Meanwhile, Naruto would hunt for Varon. The commander thought you would be a great help to me if we ever come under attack, Tali told the swagman, leading the group. The two of them, along with Liara, were supposed to find and fix the water mains, which were supposed to be in that section of the tunnels. So far, all they had found were a lot of puddles and a couple of semi-flooded rooms. There was a smell in the air, something that managed to smell both stale and wet at the same time. You do know how to handle a rifle, Maya, Liara agreed. Well, thanks, Sheila, Maya told the Asari. Truth be told, she liked it when Liara complimented her. But that still doesn't explain why I'm currently walking through a tunnel in a pair of pants that are wetter than I've ever been. I think that's because you don't know how to walk on water, Tali said without looking back at her. And what's the problem, exactly? We're just wading through water. We are wading through water that has currently hit the highest point of our waist, and it's not warm water. No, it's cold, crummy water, the kind that doesn't really leave unless you strip off the clothes and hang them out to dry over a fire, she retorted. She had gone through and under enough of that kind of water in basic training. She didn't need to go through it again. Well, you'll have to get used to it, the Quarian said as the tunnel door in front opened. It looks like we'll have to go through it again. Maya looked over her shoulder. Oh, come on, she said, groaning. The room was flooded, at least up their knees. Is there any way we can just go around or something? The water's not going to kill you, Maya. And this is coming from a Quarian, Liara said in a whisper, trying not to smile. Maya did, though. I heard that, Tali said without any heat. The three of them entered the room and then down the small ramp, into the water. It wasn't so cold as to shock their senses. But the further they waded, the more unpleasant it became. By the time they had reached the bottom of the ramp, the water had gone past their knees and settled on their thighs. This feels so disgusting, Maya muttered as she waded through the water, keeping her rifle above the water. Just don't think about it, Liara told her, wading close by her. How can I not think about it? I'm wading through it, she replied. However, if there was one benefit to wading, even though she would never say it aloud, it was that a semi-wet Liara painted an appealing picture. So are the rest of us. As they waded through the cold and crummy water, Liara noticed something ahead. Hey, Tali, is that one of the water mains over there? She pointed over to a console on a pipe embedded in the wall. The Quarian went over to the console and began running checks on it with her Omni tool. The other two took up positions in front of her, keeping watch. The seconds ticked by as the Quarian did her thing. As they stood there in the thigh-deep water, a chill went up Maya's back. Please let that be the water, she silently prayed. But she had a feeling that wasn't the case. And the last time she hadn't paid attention to her feeling, well, she still regretted it. Tali, can Geth swim? She asked. Tali looked up from the console, pausing in her work. No, she replied. Not that I'm aware of. Why are you asking? I've got a bad feeling, that's all. Please hurry up. It was at that point, as if they had heard her words, several Geth units sprang up out of the water, spraying the stuff everywhere. They came from the tunnel's other end. Which meant Liara was badly out of place, By the goddess! She swore. She come around Maya and start shooting. But no one can never really move fast through water if they're just walking. As she tried to get to a proper shooting angle, Maya was already firing off rounds. I thought you said these things couldn't swim. The swagman shouted at Tali as she tried to shoot a particular geth. It was difficult because it could move through water faster than she could. I thought they couldn't, she replied in protest. It was a half-hearted protest because she was more focused, more attention on the console. She saw a geth coming at her. Instinct took over as she pulled out her pistol and opened fire. She got lucky, managing to kill it with a bullet through the headpiece. However, she had to keep her attention on the water main. But before the fight could go even a little further on, multiple shots went off. But none of the three organics fired the shots. They came through slits in the wall in front of them, hitting their marks in the geth. The three of them stared in stunned surprise as the geth fell into the water and just floated there. Once the sound of shots being fired stopped, they all just looked at the corpses of the geth. I thought Ashley was looking for the power cells, Liara said, breaking the silence. She is, Tali told the Asari, her attention away from the console on the pipe. I thought Gurus was looking for the transmitter. He is, Maya told the Quarian. We saw them leave, remember? Then who, in the name of the fleet, did this? She gestured to the geth corpses littering the water. The bullet holes on the bodies were at precise locations, meaning the shooter knew what he, or she, knew what they were aiming for. I don't know. And that worried her. Her training had her looking around, trying to see where the threat, it was best to treat any unknowns as a possible threat, came from. But she couldn't see past the wall's slits. We need to move. Are you done with the console yet, Tali? Just give me a minute. She turned back to the console and began working again. But only after a few minutes on it, she stopped. Huh, that's weird. This is the last water main that needs to be opened. Isn't that a good thing? Liara asked her, a little confused. This is the first water main we've encountered and each main is required to be opened individually, she explained. We would have to have gone through more of the tunnels to find the rest of the mains to open them. But according to this and what my Omni tool is telling me, this is the only one left. You mean someone else already got to it? It looks like it. And that made her feel a little uneasy. Who had gotten to the other water mains before she had? Did the colonists know about that? Well, whoever it was, let's thank them when we're out of the water and dry, Maya told the two of them. She was itching to get out of the water, they could all see that. Seeing as how their mission was already done, and the fact that they were standing in cold and crummy water, they decided to head back to the colony. Al stared at the corpses lying on the floor. They're Krogan, he stated to the others. I can see that. I'm not blind, Rex replied shortly. He could see that the three dead bodies in front of them were obviously Krogan. But the thing was, two of the bodies were fully grown Krogan. The last body was a Krogan whelp who looked like he had barely reached maturity. And he knew for a fact that what few whelps were left were on Tachenka, guarded fiercely. The only thing a Krogan guarded more fiercely than a whelp was a female Krogan. Is there anyone else down here? Gurus asked the old cowboy. They had found the bodies like that when they had entered the room. They had been the group who was tracking the geth transmitter, which had led them away from the other groups. In fact, the only group that was even close to them was the group consisting of Ashley, Caden, and Quan Misley, who were looking for the power cells. Not that I know. We tried to keep the people out of the tunnels and in the colony. They're safer that way, he answered, placing his shotgun on his shoulder. So how could these three be dead? The Thorian pointed at the bodies with his sniper rifle. Do I look like I know the answer to that? Al asked with sarcasm that could barely hold back the contempt in his voice. Just look for the transmitter, Birdie. Hey, no need to be rude, Gurus said back, clearly offended by what he had heard. The old man glared at him. Move it! He thundered, shifting the shotgun back into a ready position. Gurus didn't move at his command, instead raising his weapon and taking aim. The two of them glared at one another as the standoff went on. Neither one had pulled the trigger yet. Just do as he says for now, Vicarian, Rex told the Thorian, cutting into the standoff. It's a big room we're in. We'll all have to look around. Gurus threw him a look, which he returned with a neutral one. The former cop finally lowered his gun and went to look around the room they were in. I didn't need your help, Al told the Krogan grumpily, lowering his shotgun. You were about to shoot his head off, and I'm sure Uzumaki wouldn't like it if you did, the battle master said dryly. That may be true. Well, what the hell is the kid doing with a damn birdie on his team? He demanded, like he couldn't believe it. You do realize that kid is older than you are, right? The Krogan asked amusedly. He snorted derisively. Yeah, right, he said. He's probably some kid that they pulled out of the ranks. So, you don't believe he is who he says he is? If it looks like a kid, talks like a kid, and thinks like a kid, it's a kid, he stated firmly. Especially if he's got a damn birdie on his team and thinks everything is okay. And here I thought the humans and Thorians made nice to each other after that little conflict. They might have, but I haven't yet. And I don't think I ever will. There was enough hate in the old man's voice to make Gurus feel either nervous or angry, that is, if he had heard it. He was still on the other side of the room, trying to find the transmitter. Not wanting to say anything else, he started examining the room himself, albeit on the other side. Rex decided to keep watch by the door they came in through. Despite being big and what appeared to be a few alcoves hidden by walls on their own site, the room only had the one door. Someone had to do it, and it was in the perfect spot between the human and the Thorian to make sure that they didn't start fighting again. Thankfully, Gurus found it before things could start up again between the two of them. Hey, I think I found the transmitter. He called out for the other two to hear. They quickly went over to where he was. Sure enough, the transmitter hidden in an alcove, but the Thorian had found it. Well? Shoot it already, ya damn birdie, Al ordered him. Not when you talk to me like that, I won't, he replied shortly, keeping his weapon lowered on purpose. If the two of you are just going to argue, I'll do it. Rex lifted his shotgun and fired once. The transmitter was destroyed instantly. Was that so hard? He asked them. They refused to answer. As they turned to leave the room, it was Gurus who began to wonder. Why would someone kill those Krogan, but not destroy the transmitter? He asked aloud, looking at the other two alongside him. What? Do you expect me to have the answer for you, Birdie? Al asked back. Would it kill you to be a little more polite, Al? The first contact war has been over for a while now, the Thorian told the old man in strained voice. And I didn't even fight in it. I don't give a shit if you fought in the war or not. You're a damn birdie and that's all what matters to me. He quickened his pace, just to get away from Gurus. Vicarian, when he speaks, just shut up from now on, Rex ordered, the Thorian as they followed the old cowboy. They kept the distance, not wanting another argument, or worse, a fight. With that distance, Gurus felt he was safe enough to grouse. Hey, if he wants to take out whatever he's got out on other incident veterans, I've got nothing against that, he told Rex. But I wasn't there, so why should he have to take it out on me? You'd have to fight in a war to understand. Once you get past a few, you stop caring. And he was speaking from experience, they both knew that. But before either one of them could say anything else, the calm came alive. Gurus? Rex? Come in, Caden's voice spoke in their ears. What is it, Alenko? The battle master asked the biotic on the other end. Al glanced back and saw they were on the comm. He turned his eyes back to the front. We found the power cells and are our way back. Any luck with finding the transmitter? We found it and destroyed it, Gurus answered, joining the conversation. While Rex was loud when speaking, he was trying to keep to an audible level, and he also didn't want the old man in front of them turning around and yelling at him to shut up. Is there any word on the commander? I'm here with Caden's group, Naruto spoke through the comm, answering the question. I was tracking the Varon and they apparently went down the same path that led to a crashed vehicle that had the power cells. Why are you saying apparently? Either the Varon went down the same path or they didn't, Rex told the blonde. He knew enough about Varon to know what they did, having learned how to track and hunt them back on Tuchanka. Well, they were already dead when I found them, so who knows what they were doing or where they were going, he replied. Did you say dead? Gurus couldn't help but ask. There was a moment of silence as they came out of a room and back into the tunnels they had left only moments before, as they had to go around due to rubble blockage. Gurus, do you need to get your ears cleaned out? His commander finally asked, the barest amount of sarcasm lacing the question. No. Then when I say that the Varon are dead, I mean they are dead. Okay? Okay. For some reason, he felt like he was being chastised by his father when he had done something stupid, and it didn't matter what kind of stupid it may have been. Any and all got him a lecture from his father. So, the Varon killed one another, Rex said like it was a recurring thing. And it was, to him. It wasn't uncommon for one of the pack to challenge the alpha for dominance, and eventually getting the whole pack involved, creating a massacre. I don't think so, Ashley commented, joining the conversation. We were there with the commander when he found the Varon. They had been shot with perfect precision. One shot, one kill. And they were in the room where the vehicle was. That was odd just by itself, Caden added in. What do you mean by that? Gurus asked, absently noting that they were getting close to where they had broken off from the group they were talking to now. We didn't have to extract the power cells from the vehicle, Quan Misley told the Thorian. They had already been extracted and placed on the ground next to the vehicle. As in someone already did it for you? He asked for clarification, even if it was rhetorical. Wow, that's weird. How is that weird? Caden asked, sounding just as mystified but also wanting an answer. When we found the room the transmitter was here, it was being protected by 3 Krogan. The only thing is, the Krogan were already dead. But the transmitter was still going? Quan Misley sounded like she was having a hard time believing what he was saying, and he couldn't blame her. He was still surprised by what he had come upon. Yeah, it was, Rex answered, keeping it short and simple. Something is going on down here, Naruto declared, having stayed silent while he listened to the others talk, something he was glad Tsunade had all but pounded into his head. What are we going to do about it? The Krogan asked, wanting a straight answer. Sometimes the cloak and dagger stuff got old or just annoying. Nothing for now, the blonde replied. We regroup and get back to the colony before we talk about it. Fine by me, he said, ending the conversation. In hindsight, the unit realized that it had done too much. In trying to remain unseen, it had exposed itself. So far, its charge did not realize who was in the sewers with him or why. But there were suspicions. The simple fact was the unit had done too much in the sewers, taking care of its charge's tasks before he or any of his team had a chance. It would have to be much more careful in future scenarios. Any possibility of being revealed to the charge at the moment was not ideal. As it took its position back atop the colony, a skin revealed enemy Geth heading towards them. They were far enough to avoid detection by its charge or the colony. If they let their guard down, they would be attacked. It was a problem, one that could be fixed without being discovered. Once the groups rejoined each other in the tunnels, they got out quick as they could. Everyone was wondering who had been aiding them, but they didn't dwell on it. They didn't have the time. Once back to the colony, the first place Naruto went to was Mei, the woman in charge of the generator, giving her the power cells. Once those were all set and ready, it came time to set up the Mustangs. And that was what Naruto and Gurus, along with a few of the colonists, were doing. It was work that seemed to try and break the backs of the people who were doing it. But it was work that needed to be done. All right, hold it. Al called out, drawing the last one out. He was standing in front of the turrets, keeping a good eye on them as they were set up. If I keep holding this, my arms are going to fall off, Naruto told the old cowboy. Both he and Gurus were holding one of the turrets up against the higher edge of the tower entrance, standing on the tips of their toes holding the thing in, and waiting for the clamps to take hold. Quan Misley was laying down EMP mines on the stairs in the tower. The idea was that the mines would give them a warning ahead of time and the Mustangs would slow the Geth down coming through the entrance. It was the only one that led into the colony on that side. The colonists made sure of it. Oh, shut up and hold it, you big baby, Kurama told him, a little amused by what he was seeing and listening. You've held up worse and we both know it. Yeah, but the difference here is that isn't a burning piece of wood or a heavy boulder, the blonde silently retorted. And I'm allowed to complain a little. Just keep holding it. Al told him, bringing him out of his mental conversation, short as it may have been, and back to reality. The clamps should be taking hold of soon. You said that 5 minutes ago, Gurus said to the old man, looking over at him. What he got in return was a harsh glare. I wasn't talking to you, Birdie. Just keep a hold on that turret. Surely you're capable of that, right? The Thorian stifled a growl at those words. Commander, can I please shoot him once we're finished here? He asked the blonde in a low voice. Would that be finished with the colony or finished with the planet? Naruto asked back, his voice straining just a little. It showed how he was focused on holding the turret. Either one would be nice. No, you can't, he told the former cop. We're not going to piss the colonists off and give them an excuse to shoot us. He flicked a quick look behind him, looking at the two colonists who were holding a Mustang on the opposite wall, just a little lower. They were too busy on their work to have heard him. He felt the turret he was holding shudder slightly, getting his attention. After 2 seconds it went still. The same happened for the other turret. Alright, that's it. The turrets clamped on, Al told them all. Y'all can let go now. Both groups released their grips. They could breathe a little easier now they weren't holding heavy machinery. Thanks for that, Al, one of the colonists said to the old man. I don't think my arms have hurt so much. Quit your whining, he said back. You'll be thanking me once those turrets stop any geth from coming in from the tower. Sir, the mines have been placed, Quan Misley said to Naruto, jogging up to him. Good, we're done here. He walked away from the tower entrance and passed Al with the hunter and Gurus right behind him. Night had already fallen over the colony and people were either trying to find a good spot to sleep or to stay warm. The Normandy team was going with the latter option, having set up and lit a campfire a little out of the way from everyone else. They reached the fire and found everyone else was sitting around it. I take it that everything's set up? Rex asked the three of them. He managed to look intimidating even while sitting. It was mostly due to the flickering of the fire, as it casted shadows on his scars, making them even more menacing. Yeah, the turrets are up and the mines are laid down, Gurus answered. When he sat down, he almost crashed. Spirits, I'm tired. We're all tired, Maya told him. Both she and Liara had changed into some clean clothes while the wet ones dried out. Personally, she was glad to be wearing clothes that didn't have a layer of filth on them. Not to mention curious. You mean about what was going on in the tunnels? Tali asked her. The Quarian's clothes had dried a lot faster than the Maya's and Liara's, so she was still wearing the same outfit. There is that, but there is also what we saw in the dock. At those words, everyone there swung their attention to Naruto. It didn't take him long to realize that was what they were doing. You lot aren't going to let this go, are you? He asked them all, looking up from the fire. Even though night had fallen, he still wore the sunglasses. What do you think? Caden asked back. He had seen what the commander had done, and wouldn't have believed it otherwise. He wasn't alone. Sir, I thought that ability had belonged to only one person in history, Ashley said to the Spectre. She had read her shinobi history, and she knew it well. It is, he answered shortly, poking the fire with a stick he had found nearby. Hey, you're the one who crammed me into yourself and you're the one who told me to use the sand. Shikaka told him. Still, to wield like the Godame Kazakage. Maya trailed off as she remembered how he formed and created the sand from concrete. It must have been kinda cool. She really didn't know how else to put it. He stopped poking the fire and looked at her. Cool? He repeated. That's what you call it. Yeah? Guess it works. He looked back at the fire. Is that the only ability you have? Tali asked him, her curiosity urging her on. I don't know. That was a lie. He knew that he had other abilities, had known ever since he woke up to a strange and different world. He just hadn't used them. Why don't we talk about something else? Liara suggested. Like what was going in the tunnels? Now they were relatively safe, they could think about that. It's clear that someone was aiding us, Tali said, stating the obvious. I was supposed to take care of all the water mains, yet I only had to take of the last one. When we were ambushed, something or someone took the get down from outside the room. But whoever it was didn't completely help us, Gurus told her. The transmitter we had found hadn't been touched, but the Krogan guarding it were dead. It was still bugging him. Why would someone kill the guards, but not destroy the transmitter? The important question is how did whoever helped us know what we were doing, Caden said. No, the important question is who is helping us, Quan Misley argued. Was it one of the colonists, perhaps? Maybe one of them were already down in the tunnels. Rex snorted derisively at that. Are you kidding? He asked her. Those Pyjaks are too scared to leave this place, let alone try and help us. The only one who has a quad on them is Al. Ashley's expression hardened when she heard the name. Don't talk to me about him, she told the Krogan. The edge in her voice was obvious. What exactly is your problem with him, anyway? Maya asked her. So he fought on Shanxi with your grandfather? No, she cut her off. He ran while my grandfather fought on Shanxi. She could and would always remember that. If the cowboys hadn't ran that day, the whole battle could have gone differently. Naruto saw the fire in her eyes and wasn't happy to see it. This may be a problem, he thought to himself. He already had a feeling that Ashley would gladly let Elle die if she was the only one who could save him. That was been the main reason they hadn't been in the same group in the tunnels. Now, he was starting to wonder if she would just kill him. Gurus didn't care about what Ashley's problem with the cowboy was. To him, Elle was just a racist old man. The question still remained the same: who helped us and how did they know? He asked, looking around the fire at everyone. None of them had the answer. Whoever it is and however they are doing it, I just hope that they don't plan on killing us in the end, Naruto said aloud. A strange thought came to him, making him chuckle. You know what would be ironic? He asked. What? Maya asked back. If the person helping us was Saren. Silence reigned over the campfire for a minute. Then they started to chuckle as well. It would indeed be ironic to have the very rogue Spectre agent they were hunting trying to help them. But the question still remained. Who helped them? Codex Entry, Humanity and the Systems Alliance Clayton Family. The Clayton family is one of the most prominent families in the Down Under, if not the entire human race. Members of the family have always served in the Swagman Corps, either for life or for a tour. But they serve, nonetheless, which has led to the family saying, a Clayton who doesn't serve is no Clayton at all. The first Clayton, which was his given name, had been born to a kunoichi from the land of water and a mill worker on the outskirts of the damned land in the frontier. His parents had been died before he turned 8, and he became the village orphan. As he grew up and became an adolescent, he turned to crime, often stealing from others, using what little he had learned from his mother about chakra to help him. While most would consider this his way of being recognized, he grew bold and went after increasingly difficult items. He was eventually caught and sent to the western side of the Down Under, becoming an indentured servant to the head magister of Richard's Port, see, Sir Richard the Wanderer. The head magister was a man curious about the land they lived in. He went on several exploration missions. Each time, he brought Clayton. According to history, during the last exploration mission before they met the Midgard side, Clayton had found and formed a contract with the kangaroos, supposedly, by lasting more than 3 rounds of a boxing match against the kangaroo boss. Once the two colonies had met and agreed to form a single colony, see, Cracktail meetings, the head magister returned to his place of office and began to invest in creating trade routes to the Midgard side, often sending Clayton to make sure they were established. During these journeys he became friends with other men and women who were of Midgard or frontier descent, as well as a mixture of both. This group would eventually become the leaders of the Wild Riders during the Long War, c. the 28. Once the head magister died, having been an old man by the time the two colonies established trade routes, his replacement, a young woman named Rachel Glenbrook, took office. Having been told that his servitude would end at the death of the previous magister, Clayton had begun to leave Richard's Port. However, he was detained by the guards. He was brought back to Glenbrook. As it turned out, she had worked alongside Clayton and lusted after him. She had him imprisoned in her bedroom, all but raping him every night. Once his friends learned what happened, they broke him out and fled the city, hiding out in the rough lands. That was the beginning of the war. During the war, Clayton and some of his friends were in command of the scouting forces, checking where the strength of the Loyalist forces, or tamed Mares, lay and where they were marching. They also led enemy forces into the rough lands and then cut their supplies off from the back, letting them starve. They also led their own troops through the rough lands, safely navigating the terrain. It was from these 3 things that the beginning of the Swagman Corps came to be. Once the war was over and the new government was established, see, Marine Intervention of 1667, Clayton helped officially establish the Swagman Corps. Once they had been established, he retired so he could raise his family. His first son, Albert Clayton, named for the old magister, who Clayton had considered an uncle figure, eventually joined the Swagman Corps and became its leader in time. Today, the Clayton family is large enough to be considered a clan and is one of the few families in the frontiersmen of the Down Under to have strong chakra. The current head of the Clayton family is Jack Clayton. He is the father of 3 sons and 2 daughters. Chapter 17, Hi-Ho Mako. Drive away. Location: Pharaohs. As the morning sun began to shine down on the colony, Naruto was by the tower entrance, keeping watch. Gaki, what the fuck are you doing? Kurama asked him groggily, waking up like the other Biju. What does it look like, furball? He mentally asked back. I'm keeping watch. He was sitting on a large piece of rubble, which he had rolled over from its original spot, just off of the path to the tower. That way, he wasn't in the way, but he could still see what was inside the tower. How long have you been keeping watch? Matatabi asked him, sounding a little concerned for him. He shrugged his shoulders. I don't know, 2 hours before sunrise? I couldn't get any sleep, so I just gave up and took the watch. That's not good for you, Naruto, Kurama told him. You need to sleep. Otherwise, you won't be able to function properly. And a Jinchuriki who didn't function properly was liable to end up dead very quickly. That happened to Kokoa's second Jinchuriki. Hey, I tried to go to sleep but I just couldn't. This is not during the war when I stayed up night after night. He could admit now that hadn't been the best of decisions. He had pulled a number of overnighters in succession, and yet, he still did as much as he did before. But he was stubborn and was planning to do it again. Tsunade had to sedate him in order to get him to go to sleep, which he had thanked her for afterwards. I should hope not. You were out for the better part of 3 days because of that little stint of stupidity. I know, you've already beaten that fact into my head before I got sealed away. There's no need to beat a dead horse now. Hell, the horse's corpse and bones had long since faded away now. While he was having this conversation, Al walked over. Kid, what the hell are you doing up this early? He asked the blonde. His shotgun was resting comfortable on his shoulder. Naruto looked over at him with a frown. Number 1, stop calling me a kid, I'm older than you. Number 2, I couldn't sleep, so I kept watch. The cowboy returned his frown. Number 1, I'll call you kid as much as I damn please. Number 2, you do realize that with the Mustangs and mines protecting the tower, there's no need to keep watch, he replied. I'm old-fashioned and old school. Someone had to keep a watch while the others slept, otherwise they would all end up dead. We still do that, Al retorted with a snort. We don't get holed up in a half-destroyed colony every single time. We actually tried to avoid that kind of thing. Then why in the name of Kami are these colonists still here? He demanded, flinging his arm wide at the colony to emphasize his point. Shouldn't you have already relocated them? I tried doing that. They refused to budge, insisting that this was their home and they had to protect it. Hell, even the kids wouldn't budge about moving. So, I promised that I would make sure they knew how to protect themselves. And you've kept that promise very well, the blonde remarked. The colonists who were trying to protect their homes always looked like they could drop their weapons at the sound of a loud noise. If he had still been an immature brat like he was before getting his headband, he would have pranked them just so he could see them drop those weapons. But he could admit that the colonists, despite not having enough training, were doing their best. I'm a Westplain man, Al told him, thinking that he had just been insulted. And when a Westplain makes a promise, they stick to that promise. They don't step back from it, they don't walk away from it, and they most certainly don't ignore it. The look on the old man's face just screamed the fact that he believed what he was saying. All right, I get it, Naruto said, looking away. Did I make that face when I was younger? He asked himself. Are you kidding? You still make it now, Kurama told him with a grin that would have looked bloodthirsty on anyone else. The fox had known the blonde ever since he had been sealed into him. He knew that his Jinchuriki was exactly like Al when it came to promises. The only difference was that he was a little less cynical and jaded. When he turned his head back, Al had already left. The other colonists were a lot slower to wake up, leaving the blonde alone at the moment. He kept his watch over the tower entrance. There had been a few attempts by the Geth during the night, but they hadn't gotten through, thanks to the mines and the Mustangs. After the third attempt, Naruto wondered how heavy of sleepers everyone else was. As he watched, he saw a rock laying on the ground. It was small, probably big enough to fit into his palm. You want to break down into sand, don't you? Shikaka asked him. Huh? No, I don't. Oh, come on, you know you want to. You can do it. You have the skills. Knock it off, Shikaku, Gyuki said. Don't badger him to use sand. It makes you sound like a drunk needing liquor. Shikaka flashed a glare at the Hachibi. Oh, like you weren't going to ask him to spitting out ink and flashing tentacles everywhere. No, I wasn't, and don't make me sound like a pervert. Hey, you two aren't the only ones here, Sun told them both, butting into the conversation. He could melt the rock using lava. Or maybe set it alight, Matatabi suggested. I'm sure it would look great in blue fire. It's not a fashion accessory, Matatabi, Naruto told the Nibi. It's a rock. He glanced at the other Biju. And besides, I'm not sure I'll use those abilities much. 8 of his tenants had the same reaction. What? The last one looked at him critically. This isn't something where you don't think you're good enough to use them, is it? Kurama asked. If that was the case, he was going to get smacked upside the head so hard, hair would fly. He made a face. No, nothing like that. He was a shinobi. He used everything he could get his hands on. Thing is, I've already got enough in my arsenal. I don't really need more. Really should have thought of that before you brought these freeloaders in here, he remarked. The others glared at him, which he ignored. So says the original freeloader? Even as he spoke, he could see the others were still annoyed and getting mad. Look, I didn't say I wouldn't use them, just I wouldn't use them much. Just think of it as hidden aces. Everyone loves a hidden ace. He just happened to have 8 of them. That pacified them, somewhat. Just be sure to use them, alright? Saiken said. We like to know we're appreciated. I do appreciate you guys. If he didn't, he wouldn't bother to talk to them. You still want to turn that rock into sand, right? Shikaku! The other 8 roared. Naruto smiled as he listened. Meanwhile, the rest of the colony slowly woke up. Good morning, Commander, Fai Dan said as he walked up. Have you been here all night? He looked at the entrance to the tower. There was nothing there. The blonde shook his head. No, I couldn't really sleep, so I kept watch. Just now, I had an enlightening conversation with Al. His voice became highly sarcastic when it got to the word enlightening. The colonist winced at the sarcasm. I apologize for that. Al isn't the best of people in the morning. And here I thought it was because I made the mistake of bringing Gurus into his presence, he remarked, still sarcastic. You'll have to forgive him, Fai Dan told him. He fought in the First Contact War on Shanxi. So I heard from Ash, and that's no excuse. It hadn't been an excuse at the beginning of the Fourth Shinobi World War, and it wasn't an excuse now. But I can tell he's proud of his family, if he's saying he's a Westplain man is anything to go by. Wait, you mean to tell me that you don't about the family Al is from? There was surprise in his voice, like Al's family was public knowledge. And it probably was. But Naruto always found it best to hear the information from people. Sealed inside a rock for 2,000 years here, he said, pointing to himself. He was going to milk that excuse for all it's worth. Well, I don't know a lot, Fai Dan told him, sounding a little embarrassed for admitting it. It's still more than I would know, he replied. So please, tell me all you know about Al's family. House Westplain is from the damned land in the frontier. They are a family of Kalbas who are rather infamous among the Kalbas. And how are they infamous? There were plenty of ways to become infamous. Only a few were good. They claim that they are the direct descendants of the original leader of the Kalbas, the man with no name, which makes things a little odd for them. How so? Asked the blonde. No one really knows who that leader was. He was literally a man with no name. All the history books say was that once the rebellion was in full swing, he disappeared. But there was one other thing that comes with his legend, something House Westplain has been chasing. What's that? Apparently, the man had a summoning contract with the horses and it disappeared with him. Most Westplain members spent some part of their lives looking for that summoning contract. Al was the exception to that, from what I've learned. If he had been drinking something, that would have been the moment Naruto would have given an offering to the Spit-Take gods. A summoning contract for horses? He repeated what he had heard. That sounds completely ridiculous. It sounds just as ridiculous as a summoning contract for toads, Sun chimed in. Hey, don't go mocking the toads, Sun, he told the Yambi. He might not have their contract anymore, but that didn't mean he think lowly of the toads. Don't worry about him, Naruto, Koko said. He's just grumpy about the toads due to the fact that when Rashi went to find more firepower for IWA and found the gorillas, they were soundly beaten by Jiraiya and the toads. I thought we agreed to never talk about that event ever again, Sun said to the Gobi, clearly irritated and annoyed. How else is he supposed to know that you don't like the toads? You're stuck inside of him. You might as well give him context to work with. And meanwhile, Geth are coming from the tower, Shikaka remarked, making it sound he was talking about the weather. But it got the attention of their Jinchuriki. He swung his gaze directly over to the tower. "Fai Dan, get my team over here, now," he ordered as they watched Geth come down the steps. "Yes, of course," Fai Dan replied, quickly leaving the blonde. Naruto watched as the Geth continued to get closer. Most of the mines had been used. It gave the Geth more room to walk down onto. However, that also gave the Mustangs more targets to hit. Their barrels spun rapidly as they fired on the incoming Geth, sending the ones that were hit down to the ground. As the Geth got shot down and still kept moving, Naruto suddenly felt aware of the weight of the pistol strapped to his belt. It was a good opportunity to practice his shooting. I might as well, he thought to himself as he pulled it free. The Geth didn't seem to notice what he was doing. They were so intent on reaching the entrance. Not wanting to look a gift horse in the mouth, he took the stance he had been taught and opened fire. He didn't hit all of his targets, in fact some of them went wide, but he kept at it. Slowly but surely, his shots began to get constant, hitting the Geth. Whether it was in the shoulder, head, chest, or wherever, he did not care. Right now, he was just happy to be hitting them. "You seem to be doing well," Komiai remarked as he watched the blonde keep up the shooting. "I had to figure it at some point, right?" the blonde asked. He took aim and fired on a Geth a little too close to the entrance for his taste. "Yeah, but with your track record, that some point would have been a ways away in the future," Kurama said back with a big grin on his face. "I don't need to hear that from you, Fox. Hey, it's the truth and we both know it." If he was a crueler sort of Biju, he would have laughed at that point. He had lost count of the number of times the blonde didn't get the simple explanation of something, and just charged straight into things without a thought to any plan. Naruto ignored the fox and kept on shooting the incoming Geth. He didn't know whether they were getting shot down too quickly to notice or just focused on getting through the tower entrance, but not a single Geth seemed to see him and return fire. They just kept moving and kept getting destroyed. By the time his team had joined him, along with Fai Dan and Arcelia, the Geth were practically done for. "You guys are late," the specter amongst them remarked. He fired off a round at one of the Geth, striking its headpiece and making collapse to the ground. The Geth that remained were dealt with by the Mustangs. "You'll have to pardon us. We all weren't keeping watch over a possible way for the Geth to get in from," Rex said with dry sarcasm that had the faintest hint of grogginess in it. In fact, the Krogan looked like he would rather still be sleeping than standing there. "Can we please focus on the more important fact here?" Talia asked, stepping into the conversation and stopping from going anywhere of the teams sniping at one another. "And what would that be?" the battle master asked as he looked over at her. He wasn't in the mood for any of this at the moment. Somehow feeling rather small at that point, the Quarian mustered up her courage and kept speaking. "I'm talking about the Geth. Where are they coming from?" "Probably from the Exogeny building. That's where their main ship landed when all this started," Arcelia offered. The woman looked a little grumpy, but that was mostly because she had been jolted out of sleep when Fai Dan told her that Geth were at the tower entrance. "And what exactly is Exogeny?" Naruto asked her. He had the urge to cock his head like a dog would when hearing a new sound, but the sudden feeling of the fox glaring at him stopped. "It's the company we all worked for before this all started," Fai Dan explained, gesturing widely with his hands at everything around them. "They were the ones who funded this colony." "Alright, how do we get there?" Gurus asked, frowning slightly when he saw Al join them. Ashley, however, had a full-blown scowl directed at the old cowboy. He ignored it. "The Skyway leads right to the building." "Of course, there's an army of Geth between us and the building," the leader of the colony admitted. "It wouldn't be any fun if there weren't any there," Rex told him. There was the faintest of grins on the Krogan's face when he said those words. Yes, of course," Fai Dan agreed, feeling nervous all of a sudden. Next to him, Arcelia just rolled her eyes. "How long is this Skyway?" Naruto asked, already beginning to try and figure out how long it would take him to reach the other side if he ran at top speed. About halfway through his calculations, he realized that the only other person who could keep up with his speed was Ashley. Caden might be able to keep up as well as the other biotics, but there was also the fact that they might run out of energy. "And do you have transportation?" he added. "It's long enough to be a pain in the ass," Al answered for Fai Dan. "And yeah, we have a couple of Makos and a Pitbull." "You have a Pitbull?" Tali replied, making it sound like she had just found a treasure beneath her feet. I didn't think any of those existed anymore. Completely rebuilt it from the ground up myself, he told her with pride in his voice. Also made some improvements, if I may say so myself. You just did, Ashley remarked shortly. Well, that answers that question, Naruto said, cutting things off before the conversation between the two got more intense. He had a feeling that if he didn't take permanent steps, things would get worse. Those steps would have to be taken soon. Now we just need to get to them and get onto the Skyway. There's an elevator in the tower that leads up to them, Arcelia told him, gesturing at the tower. Thanks, we'll be going now. After a quick ride up the elevator, the team, along with Al, stood front of the vehicles. While he had seen a Mako before, even driven one, Naruto had never seen a Pitbull before, and it was a little strange. Then again, he could say that for a lot of things in this time. There were only 2 seats in the vehicle, which could be seen through the glass that had been put on the front and the sides of the driving compartment. The rest of the vehicle was a flat plane with low walls surrounding it, meeting up with the driving compartment. In the middle of the back was a stand with a heavy machine gun attached. Keela, this is something I'd never thought I would see, Tali exclaimed as she looked at the Pitbull. If they could see her eyes, they would have seen they were alit with wonder and excitement. It's my pride and joy, Al told her, smiling proudly. It's a car, Ashley said as she stared at the Pitbull. More than that, it looked like it had been welded together with nothing but scrap metal and prayer. And here we go, Shikaku remarked with a barely contained snigger. Shut up, the rest of the Biju told him. What they said, Naruto mentally agreed. What? I can't make innocent remarks? He sounded like he was hurt by what they had told him. No, the other 8 Biju said. Again, what they said. You guys are no fun at all, Shikaku whined, which was a little weird to hear that come from a Biju. This isn't just a car, Ashley, Tali told her. This is a Mark V assault-class Pitbull, one of the last vehicles to have used steam power as an energy source. These kinds of cars were all but wiped out on Shangxi. She would have kept going talking about it, but she saw the scowl on Ashley's face was beginning to turn into a glare. Of course, steam power isn't really a variable option nowadays, Al said as he walked over to the Pitbull, slapping a hand down on the metal plating and making it echo all around them. So I made some modifications to it. Tali looked back at the Pitbull. Really? What kind of modifications? She asked him, clearly interested now. She couldn't see any differences from what she's read. Do we really have the time to wonder what he did to the car? Ashley asked loudly and rudely. It's just a piece of junk that'll get him from point A to point B. Ash, we don't need this right now, Naruto told her in a warning tone of voice. She obviously wanted to keep going, but one look at his warning expression stopped her. Al, are you going to need a gunner? He asked the cowboy, changing the conversation. Of course I'm going to need a gunner. Are you stupid or blind to not see that? The old man asked him with a snort. Whether it was just his normal brand of rudeness or a reply to how Ashley was acting was up for grabs at that, although a lot of the members of the team were placing bets on the latter rather than the former. Just making, that's all, the Spectre replied before a hand seal. Kaige Bunshin no Jutsu. A large cloud of smoke momentarily engulfed him, and when it cleared, he was surrounded by clones. You're the gunner, he said, pointing to the clone in question. The rest of you are on the suicide wagon. To the surprise of everyone there, the one clone whooped in excitement, and the others groaned loudly. Oh come on, why us? One of the groaning clones said in a voice full of complaint. Because I said so, now get moving, Naruto ordered, pointing at the second Mako. I don't wanna, another clone said in a childish voice, crossing his arms and pouting. You can't make us, a third clone told the original defiantly. You wanna bet? He asked back, leaping into the group of clones before getting an actual answer. Everyone just watched in stunned surprise as Naruto began to literally beat the clones into the second Mako, which was quite impressive considering that he was only one person and was severely outnumbered by his clones. But he was able to force his clones into the vehicle and close the hatch once they were in. Then he looked at the remaining clone. Are you going to be a problem too? He asked. Of course not, I get the fun job, the clone replied before hopping onto the back of the Pitbull and taking hold of the gun. Hurry up, old man. Let's get going already. He called out to Al, already sounding impatient. Old man? repeated Al, sounding very offended. Naruto just shrugged his shoulders. You're the one calling me kid. Turnabout's only fair. Will you come on already, old man? The clone demanded loudly. Al looked at the original, then at the clone before exhaling what sounded like a sigh of defeat. Alright, I'm coming. Shut your trap, he shouted at the clone. He walked over to the driver's side door and got in. Well, that's two down, the Spectre said as he turned to the rest of the team. Shall we get moving? They didn't move from where they stood. What's the matter with you guys? You all look like you saw something stupid. That would be an accurate description, Liara said, finally finding her voice. He followed her gaze to the second Mako, realizing what she was thinking. Oh, the clones, he said mostly to himself. They get like that sometimes. He grinned sheepishly at them. It's one of the reasons why I don't really like being called Kage no Gunhai. They said nothing back, which made the air around them all feel awkward. So, shall we get moving? The blonde offered. He walked over to the first Mako and got in. Seeing as they couldn't really say anything else, they all followed him into the Mako. Once inside, they took what seats they could find. Rex went to sleep almost instantly. Kaden took the driver's seat and started up the engine. We're good to go here. Naruto fiddled with the radio on the dashboard. This is Almighty Original calling this suicide wagon. Suicide wagon, come in, he said once he had the frequency he was looking for, which he thought was lucky. Anderson had taught him how to search for and use the proper frequencies only the day before they reached Pharaoh's, so it was still new to him. Again, everyone else just stared at him. This time, they were wondering what sort of weird nonsense he was speaking. Then an answer came back. This is the suicide wagon, we're ready to go, one of the clones answered his call. Good to hear, suicide wagon. Alright, Kaden, let's move it on out, he told the biotic in the driver's seat. Aye, Commander. Kaden started moving the Mako forward to the large door in front of him, slowing down slightly to let it open. Sir, what exactly was that you were saying on the radio just now? His sense of curiosity was burning to know. That was me talking to the clones in the other Mako, he explained as the door in front of them slowly opened. They could hear it open in the Mako, albeit muted. It was a slow grinding sound, as if the gears were trying to figure out what they were supposed to do. We gathered as much, mate, Maya told him. We're just wondering about the terminology. What was with the suicide wagon thing? That was what we used to call the group of clones that quickly got eliminated during the war, he explained. The wagon part was because we often had to send them somewhere incognito and a wagon was frequently used. But once the wagon wasn't needed anymore, they ended up getting killed, in a lot of varied ways. His face turned thoughtful as the door finally opened. You know, I could probably make a list of the ways the clones died. Probably be funny too. We heard that, one of the clones said through the radio. And we don't find it funny. When I want your opinion, I will ask for it. Until then, shut up and drive, he ordered. There were a few grumbles from the radio, but the Mako that had the clones lurched forward, settling into a steady driving pattern. The Pitbull and the other Mako followed it out onto the Skyway. When he saw what was outside, Kaden could only stop and whistle. The Skyway was truly a road in the sky. It was uneven in its length, with a slope to the right, leading to a higher path. But the road was long and held up by wires and bridge columns the size of towers. And the buildings that they could see beyond the Skyway were bigger, much bigger than the columns. It was a monument to Prothean engineering. By the goddess, Liara said as she looked out the front window, over Naruto's shoulder. I had heard about skyways like these before. But to actually see something like it for myself, it's amazing. She sounded breathless, like she had discovered a lost treasure. Then again, she was an archaeologist on Protheans. She lived to find such things. Maya, on the other hand, wasn't so impressed. It's a bridge, she declared, looking through the window over Kaden's head. The Asari looked over at her like she had denounced life, the universe, and everything. How could you say such a thing, Maya? She asked the swagman. Can't you see how magnificent this thing is? It's a bridge, Sheila. It helps people get from point A to point B when the path goes over water or, in this case, sky. That's it. And it wasn't evenly properly maintained either. She could see rubble and wrecks all over it. You can't deny that whoever actually built this was an artist, Tali said as she joined the conversation, looking at the bridge between Kate and Naruto. It was a little cramped between the human and the Asari, but she could make do. But I agree with Maya. It's just a bridge. The building on the other end of the bridge is something else entirely. I wonder if there's any Prothean tech left in it. I doubt it, Liara told the Quarian. The human company probably has been here long enough to strip the building bare. But I'm glad that they didn't touch the Skyway. There was a note of delight in her voice at that last part. It's still a bridge, Maya said again. She looked down at the driver of the Mako and the blonde sitting next to him. What do you guys think? She asked the two of them. I think you three ladies are making the front of the vehicle rather cramped, Naruto answered them, looking up at them. From his angle, they looked like talking heads that belonged on a wall, which just sounded creepy to him. Now would you sit down, please? We're trying to get across this bridge, not admire it. They did as they were told, Liara a little reluctantly. Hey, kid. Do you mind not saying all that crap over an open channel? Al asked through the radio. Do you want the Geth to hear us? He sounded very annoyed with them. Sorry, I'm still new with this kind of thing. The Spectre apologized before flipping the radio channel to a more secure one. At least, he hoped it was a more secure one. They could still talk to the other vehicles and vice versa. Suicide Wagon to Almighty Original. You charming the ladies as usual, boss? One of the clones asked from the radio as Liara, Maya, and Tali sat back down in their seats. Of course, he is. This is the boss we're talking about here, another clone said. He charms the ladies and doesn't even know it. He would make Jiraiya-sensei so proud if he could see it. You mean he would weep jealously? No, he would be weeping with joy. Either way, Jiraiya-sensei would be weeping. Whoa, hold on, Naruto said into the radio. I don't remember approving the motion of allowing Erosenin to be called sensei. The last time we checked, that wasn't for you to decide, the first clone replied. Now go make Jiraiya-sensei proud. Get all the ladies in the galaxy. Ash, fire a shot at the other Mako, he ordered the other shinobi, who was already manning the gun. She did as she was ordered. The shot struck the shields of the other Mako, making them flash blue and ripple. Once the shields faded from sight, the blonde spoke again. Now, do you lot want to keep acting like you've lost your minds? Or do I need to come over there? No need for that, we'll be good, one of the clones hurriedly assured him. There's no need for you to come over. Better yet, please don't shoot at us again. He took his hand off the radio. Damn clones are going to give me a migraine one of these days, he muttered to himself. Geth's ship inbound from the left. Ael's voice roared through the radio. Naruto and Kaden turned to see what the old man was talking about. The Geth ship flew up over the bridge, and despite attempts to shoot it down, from both them and the other side of the bridge, it managed to drop several Geth armatures along the bridge. Way to go, people, the old cowboy said with acidic sarcasm. Because of your constant chattering, we now have to deal with a boatload of Geth. Thank you ever so much for that. Now get your asses moving. The last part came out as a bellow, making many in the Mako cover their ears. Rex didn't even budge. Alright, we're moving. Keep your hat on, Naruto replied through the radio. Get this thing moving, Kaden, before he decides to lose his temper. The biotic did as he was instructed and started driving the Mako forward again. Ashley, if you could please start shooting at them, he asked her as they got closer. Working on it, she told him. She swerved the turret onto the intended target and opened fire. Naruto watched through the glass as the two Makos and Pitbull took on the two Geth armatures front of them. The turret welded onto the Pitbulls was the most effective of the three. While it took the two Makos to take down one of the armatures, the Pitbull took down the other. Cammy, Al, what kind of bullets are you packing in that thing? Naruto asked as the three vehicles drove past the ruined armatures. Anti-armor rounds, the old man answered. It does wonders against critters that got heavy armor or are machines themselves. Just then, another voice came onto the radio. The last patch went south. What are they looking for? The voice, a woman's, asked. Whoa, what's that? The blonde asked as he started to fiddle with the radio, trying to figure out where the voice had originated from. Where's it coming from? Kaden asked, briefly turning his head to look at the specter. I don't know. I'm trying to find that out. But after another minute of no success, he looked back at the people sitting behind him. Help me out here, Tali. She got out of her seat and quickly went over to the radio, standing between Kaden and Naruto. Her fingers reached out and seemed to dance across the dials of the radio. It's weak, but someone is definitely out there. Can you find out where it's coming from? He asked her. I can try, she began to say, only to stop. Hold on, more's coming in. Any sign of movement? The woman's voice asked again, obviously not to them. Lisbeth could still be up there. We've only been down here a few days. There are more survivors? Liara asked. It sounds like it, Tali replied, still fiddling with the radio. I think we're about to have something else to worry about, Caden announced as he slowed down, getting the attention of everyone in the Mako, with the exception of Rex. Suicide Wagon to Almighty Original, you're seeing this too, right? The other Mako called them. Tali took her hands off the dials so she wouldn't switch the channel. Yeah, we're seeing it, Naruto answered before switching the channel to talk to the Pitbull. Al, does your vehicle have the ability to jump? If you're talking about microthrusters, no I don't. So if the plan was to use them to jump over that barricade in front of us, try thinking of something else, the old cowboy told him. Give me a minute. He stared out at the barricade that they were approaching. It wasn't one solid wall, but like several pieces of rubble pushed together to make something similar to a wall. If he was out of the Mako and standing in front of the barricade, it probably would have either stopped his chin or just over his head. We don't have a minute. Hell, we barely have 10 seconds, because that is how long it'll take the Geth to see us and start shooting, Al said, already getting annoyed. Why don't you use that shuriken jutsu of yours at it? Gurus suggested to the blonde, getting his attention. He turned to look back at the Thorian. If I try throwing a raisin shuriken at that thing, it's liable to create a hole in the Skyway. And that could cause the whole thing to collapse. Considering that we're currently on it, I wouldn't want that to happen, would you? He asked flatly. Hey, it was just a suggestion, the former cop said defensively. Not a very good one. He looked back at the barricade, trying to think of an idea. Ash, do you have any more right-on jutsu in your arsenal? He asked the other shinobi. A couple of them, she answered, taking her eyes off the turret screen. Have you got something in mind? Yeah, I do. Liara, you're helping out, he told the Asari, catching her by surprise. Oh, okay, she replied. What are we doing? We're going to break a hole through that barricade for the Pitbull. Quanmisley, you've got an explosive that can help and not risk damage to the structure, right? She nodded once. Good. Tali, take my seat. Maya, take the turret, he ordered as he got out of said seat. Gurus, wake Rex up. Why am I doing that? The Thorian asked, looking at the sleeping battlemaster with a nervous eye. He was not dumb enough to wake a Krogan. He had seen what happened to people who did, and quite frankly, he liked the way his bones were set. Don't bother, I'm awake, Rex said, opening his eyes. What do you want, Uzumaki? He asked the Spectre. I want you to hold on to Liara's legs while she's upside down through the hatch. Wait, why am I upside down through the hatch? Liara asked, immediately feeling nervous and afraid. She had never done something like that before. You're going to be throwing biotics at the Geth. Now get ready. Ash, follow me. He went to the back, stepping past everyone else. Quanmisley silently gave him several explosives as he passed. Once he was at the back, he reached up and opened the emergency hatch, climbing up onto the top of the Mako. Ashley followed him while Liara stood ready near the hatch, hand on the handle. Once he and Ashley were on the top and their feet were now unmovable due to being coated in chakra, he reached up to the calm in his ear. Suicide Wagon, this is Almighty Original. Do not follow what we're about to do. Once the hole has been made, provide covering fire so that Al can get through and then follow him. Understood. We'll wait, one of the clones said back. Caden, gun it! He ordered the biotic. The Mako lurched forward underneath his and Ashley's feet, hurtling towards the barricade. Ash, start prepping a right jutsu. Yes, sir, she replied, instantly folding her hands into hand seals. They reached the barricade. Caden hit the microthrusters, sending the Mako flying. Just as it cleared the barricade, Ashley clasped her hands into the last hand seal. Right-on, Taka, lightning style, hawk! She cried out, unclasping her hands and clapping them together once when they were covered in lightning. A hawk made of lightning leapt forth from her hands and dived down at the Geth behind the barricade, shocking them into paralysis. Liara, open the hatch and start throwing your biotics. Naruto ordered the Asari through the calm as he primed and threw the explosives. He could already hear her throwing her biotics at the paralyzed Geth, as the explosive sailed through the air and latched onto a large piece of the barricade. Within seconds, it exploded and reduced the piece to nothing, covering it in smoke. The Mako started to descend. "Rex, pull her back in," he ordered. An unexpected ring of shots being fired off surprised him, even more so when he saw that it was coming from Ashley. "I didn't tell you to do that, Ash." "Just be thorough, sir," she replied as she kept firing off rounds from her sniper rifle. She hit every guess she shot, right in the headpiece. They both heard the roar of the Pitbull before it barreled through the smoke. It carved a path through the Geth, the turret on the back mowing them down as well. The other Mako followed it through the hole, opening fire too. "They seem to be having fun," Isabu commented as he watched the carnage. "What do you expect? One of those machines is full of clones of him," Kurama told the turtle, looking pointedly at their Jinchuriki. He would have said something in response, except the Mako underneath landed back on the ground. It was a jarring experience, one that would have made him fall on his rear if he hadn't coated his feet in chakra. He still wobbled though, swinging his arms rapidly to make sure he had his balance. "Nice landing, Caden," he said into the comm, joking a little. "Could you have made it any more rougher?" "Sorry, sir," Caden replied, actually sounding apologetic and sincere. "Wow, that kid can't take a joke, can he?" Sun asked the mandatory rhetorical question. "Shut up," the blonde told him. "Caden, you know I'm just teasing you, right?" "Of course you are, sir." "Commander, we got something from the radio," Tali told him. The woman's voice came through his calm. "She's my daughter. I will wait down here for as long as I have to." The radio went dead after that. It didn't slow him down. "Tali, tell me that you've figured out where that's coming from," he said. "It's still too weak for an exact location," she told him. "All I've got is that it's coming from the building in front of us." "You mean the really big one?" he asked, looking at the building at the end of the Skyway. It was probably the largest of the buildings he could see. It looked like it was trying to pierce the sky. He couldn't even see the bottom. "That would be the one." "How many times do I have to tell y'all to stop yapping?" Al asked them. "There's a whole lot of Geth between us and that building. Every moment we spend here talking, more Geth are going to be showing up. So how's about we can the talk and get moving?" "Thank you, Al, for your opinion," Ashley said rudely. "We'll take what you've suggested under advisement. And until we say otherwise, kindly shut your damn hole." She took her hand off her comm, disconnecting herself from the conversation. "Al, stand by," Naruto ordered the cowboy before he could start ranting or yelling. He looked over at Ashley as he took his hand off his comm. "Until we say otherwise? The last time I checked, Ash, you're not royalty or in charge of this team." There was a cold fury building up in his voice as he said those words. She went still as he spoke, hearing the fury in his voice. While it was nothing like what she felt at the fire last night, she still knew that she had crossed the line. "Sir, I don't want to hear it," he cut her off. "I've already told you to put a lid on whatever it is you've got against Al. But since you've decided to keep trying to find ways to step around my order, I'm going to have to be obvious. So listen up, if this happens one more time, I'm dragging you back to the Citadel, dropping you off in front of Udina's feet, and telling him to find you somewhere else to serve." It was like his words slapped her across the face with the way she reacted. "Commander," she tried to protest. He shouted her down. "I don't want to hear it. I didn't come here to deal with a fuck you at 40 paces. I came here to find Saren or what he wanted from this place. Your little vendetta against Al is on the back burner until I say otherwise. Am I clear?" he asked her. His voice and tone made sure to tell her that there was no place to argue. "Crystal, sir," she replied, using the same voice she had used when other superiors had gotten in her face about what happened to her grandfather. And here she thought that the blonde would be someone different. "Good." He put his hand back on the calm suicide wagon. "This is almighty original. Take the lead and don't stop. That's an order." "We're about to be dead clones, aren't we?" one of the clones asked him with a tone of resignation. "Just drive." "We'll take that as a yes." The other Mako hurtled past them and the Pitbull at full speed, heading the slope that was rudely created by the Skyway, which the Spectre assumed it was either created by the Geth or the colonists. About halfway up the slope was the Geth, and they stretched up the rest of the slope and probably beyond it. "Caden, Al, follow the suicide wagon," he told the other two drivers. "Sir, shouldn't you get back inside?" Kaden asked him. No time for that. Just go. About damn time too, kid, Al said to him. Ashley frowned but didn't say anything. The Pitbull charged forward, following the other Mako. It took Kaden about 5 seconds to follow, letting them take the rear. Ash, stay ready with that sniper rifle of yours, he ordered, pulling out his pistol. The almost literal horde of Geth in front of them were fast approaching. Of course, sir, she replied neutrally. I think she's angry, Saiken remarked. No kidding. What tipped you off? Shikaka asked the slug, overly sarcastic tone. No sniping, please, Naruto told them before they could actually start. Hey, how could we be sniping? The Tanuki asked. We're not the ones with the sniper rifle in our hands. That would be Ash. If anything, she's the one who's sniping. Could one of you please kick his ass? He asked his other 8 tenants. The Mako was getting closer to the Geth line. Things were going to get tricky here. The Mako's roof was not a place to take the stance he used to shoot. He was going to have to improvise here. On it, all 8 of the other Biju said in reply. Naruto didn't pay attention to what they did. He was focused what was happening in front of him. The other Mako hit the Geth line. Once it did, everyone who could shoot did. What came next was a bit of a blur for the blonde. All he could really remember afterwards was shooting into the horde as the Mako drove through it, fighting off any who got on top of the roof, the sounds of the turret firing, and the humming of the Mako coursing from underneath his feet. He wasn't sure how long it went on for. Each second seemed to stretch on longer than the last. At some points, it felt like the world had just slowed down, and he could see everything happening. Thankfully, this wasn't his first time experiencing this kind of thing. He kept shooting at the Geth, not letting the sensation stop him. He didn't realize that they had broken through the Geth until about half a minute after the fact. Phew, that was intense, he thought to himself as he shook his head, getting himself back into reality. That, I think, would be putting it lightly, Komi commented. We've cut through the horde, Commander, Kaden told him. The Mako approached the end of the Skyway. There was a door there big enough for the Mako, and people on top, to drive through. We'll be on the other side of that door within a matter of seconds. Wait, it's not over yet, he replied. One more thing is going to happen. What's that? Ashley asked him. It was at that exact moment, one of the Geth armatures fired off a missile. It flew overhead, straight for the other Mako. It swerved in time to avoid the missile. Unfortunately, it swerved in the wrong direction, going left instead of right. Which led to Ashley and Naruto watching as it sailed right off the Skyway, falling into the clouds below. Okay, now we can move on, Naruto declared once the other Mako disappeared. Both the Pitbull and the Mako passed through the now open door. Did that really just happen? Tali asked him through as they stopped in what looked like a garage. It didn't look any better than the buildings around the colony. In fact, it looked just the same, half buried in rubble. There's a reason why they were called the suicide wagon, he replied as he jumped down. As soon as his feet touched the floor, he felt woozy. Whoa, headrush, he said to himself as he steadied himself, using the Mako for support. You okay, sir? Asked Kaden as he got out. The others came out as well and gathered up around them. Yeah, I'm fine. His head was already clearing up. Okay, we're at the end of the Skyway. Where do we go next? That would be through there, sir, Ashley answered, pointing at a ramp that went downward into a small tunnel. There were obviously signs of life in the tunnel, like the lights set up in it. Everyone approached the tunnel with weapons out and ready to use. Once they got past the lights, they could see the room on the other end of the tunnel. There were people inside. They looked tired and scared, with only a few of them keeping watch. But they were there and they were alive. As the team closer, 2 of the people, a man and a woman, saw them. That's close enough. The man shouted at them. He was waving a pistol in such a way even Naruto could tell that he didn't really know how to use it. Relax, Jong. They're obviously not Geth, the woman next to him told him. Both wore the uniform jumpsuit of scientists, but they looked just as worn as the people wearing them. Get back, Juliana, he said to her before turning his attention back to the team. Who are you? What do you want? I'm Commander Naruto Uzumaki and I'm here to help get the Geth off this planet, Naruto introduced himself. The man obviously didn't believe him. Give me a break. That was just a stunt the Alliance pulled. Does that really matter right now? Juliana asked him. If he's here to help, he's here to help. She looked over at the blonde and his team. I'm glad to see a friendly face. I thought the only humans left on this planet were us. You didn't hear, ma'am? Al asked her. Y'all sent me to find out if the colony was still intact. I sent transmissions back to you saying that they were. When she heard those words, she swung her gaze back to Zhang. You said that they were all dead, she said in an accusing tone. I said they were probably all dead, he replied, deflecting the accusation. Where are the Gethir? Naruto asked the two of them, getting their attention back. They're right above us, Juliana answered. We're in the basement, or garage area of the Exogeny headquarters. That elevator will take straight up to it. She pointed with her thumb to an elevator off to the side of the room. The headquarters are private property, soldier, Zhang chimed in. Get the Geth out of there and nothing else. He was trying to look authoritative as he stared down Naruto. It didn't work. Fortunately, Naruto had plenty of experience dealing with that kind of person. Best thing to do was ignore him. Al, scout ahead, he ordered the cowboy. Why? Al asked him with a suspicious look. A. You apparently know the building. B. I'm not having you and Ash in the same room right now. So get moving. The old man threw him a look, but that was all he did. He went over to the elevator and got in it. Once the door closed, Naruto looked back at the scientists. We'll wait for the elevator to come back before leaving, he told them. Commander, before you go, Juliana said, getting his attention. She sounded scared. My daughter, Lisbeth, she's missing. They shouldn't waste time poking around. Zhang cut her off before she could finish. We can do a proper accounting of our causalities aft. He didn't finish his sentence either, mostly due to the fact that Naruto walked up to him and decked him with one strike. Once he was sure the scientist was unconscious, he looked back at her. Where's your daughter, Juliana? I'm not sure exactly, she admitted. All I know is that she was working high up in the headquarters when the Geth started attacking. She was doing what she could to keep herself composed, but everyone could see how worried she was. If she's alive, I'll get her back to you. I promise, he told her. He looked back at his team. For the first time since they landed on the planet, it seemed like there were too many of them. Maya, Quan Misley, and Kaden, when the elevator gets back, you're staying down here. I want to help out in any way you can. Aye, Commander, Kaden replied, saluting. Both Maya and Quan Misley did the same, only silently. As for the rest of you, you've got Geth to stop and a girl to save, Kurama commented. Honestly, Kit, I could have sworn you weren't 12 anymore. Not now, Fox, the blonde replied as he heard the elevator ding. It was time to get to work. Codex entry, technology steam power. Until the late 19th century, steam power was the beard and butter of the Empire of Steel. It was created by Thomas Richardson, but is the only last part of a three-part story, of which James Harrison and Matthew Adams are a part of. The popular saying in the Empire is Harrison carried the river, Adams heated the water, and Richardson channeled the steam. These three men are known as the three earthly saints, c. 6 saints of the Empire. Steam is the gaseous term for water and is created when water reaches a temperature of 212 degrees Fahrenheit. This was usually done by use of a boiler to heat the water and then pipes to channel the resulting steam so it could power the machine required. Fire was the usual method of heating the water, using several types of fuel, such as wood or coal. When it was initially discovered, steam power was only used for utility use, such as lighting, temperature, and transportation. But it was transportation that led to steam power being weaponized. After half of the Empire rose in rebellion, see Second Imperial Civil War, the Steel King, Martin IV, ordered that weapons be placed on any and all means of transportation. Once his order was carried out, he took those means of transportation to the battlefield. They proved to be the edge he needed to win the war. After the war, a whole field of weaponry had been created. From said field came such things as the Pitbull, a two-man driving vehicle, to the Fat Hack, which is low frontier for giant, a land ship that was said to rival the size of a Bijou. As the Fat Hack is now considered to be a museum piece, and there is no complete size of one in a museum, and there have been no sightings of a Bijou, that claim is disputed. But for all the technological breakthroughs steam power had made, the drawbacks had stayed the same. The people who worked the boilers often worked in very bad smoke conditions, affecting their lungs and causing breathing problems. If boilers became mishandled, they were liable to become unstable and self-destruct, killing the people who worked it. As Midgardian warriors discovered during the War of Three Flags, if the boiler was cooled to the point where it was not operational, whatever the steam was powering went dead. These were some of the reasons why the Empire eventually moved from steam to electrical power, even though a catalyst was involved. See Lakeside Inferno. Even then, steam power is used around the Empire, but not as heavily. Chapter 18, Corporate Secrets. What a surprise. Location: Pharaohs. What in the names of the heavenly saints is that boy thinking of, sending me up here? Al thought to himself as he made his way through the Exogeny building. As a veteran cowboy, he was experienced in house-to-house fighting, and this building was a very large house. He had plenty of room to work in. But that wasn't what was bugging him. What was bugging him was the fact that he had been sent up here alone by someone who looked like he was young enough to be his nephew or grandson. He didn't like being sent into something alone. No one had his back when that happened. And if no one had his back, he was liable to get shot. But he had gone on plenty of missions where he had no one else, so he could handle himself. He didn't like it, but he could handle it. But there was still that kid. Sure, his team seemed to think that he was some sort ancient being that had been sealed away in a rock and had been recently released. He called bullshit on that. The Alliance must have been truly desperate to get someone in the Spectres if they were going around and putting someone up to being a legend. It was just some punk soldier who did as he was told, and hoped to get a promotion out of it once their point was proven. He could admit that the kid did have his moments, like keeping him and that Ashley woman from coming to blows. He stopped for a moment when that thought crossed his mind. She may be his granddaughter, but I see nothing of him in her. Where her grandfather was calm, she was hot-tempered. Where her grandfather tried to make the enemy come to him, she was all too glad to go to them. Does she even know what actually happened on Shangxi? He shook his head and moved on. She probably didn't. She knew that the cowboys broke and ran, and she made it sound like she knew what her grandfather had done. But she didn't know why they broke and ran. She was just happy with blaming him for what happened. A lot of people did that. Perhaps when this was over with, they could have a civil discussion and he could tell her why they ran. Whether she believed him or not would be up for grabs. But for now, he had to focus on what he was doing. The kid told him to scout ahead, so he would scout ahead. He was quite far from the elevator, having gone down at 2 floors as well as up 3. The building was a ruined maze. Parts of it were a mess while other parts were completely destroyed, hence the maze. But that was not the fault of the Geth completely. The building had been a mess when Exogeny moved in. They were clearing it out when the Geth struck. He rounded a corner and came upon a small number of Geth. He didn't hesitate, raising his shotgun and opening fire. The Geth fell quicker than they could return fire. Within seconds they were all on the ground, dead. "Didn't give me a warm-up," he muttered as he lowered the shotgun. There was rarely anyone who could give him a challenge anymore. He had gotten that good with his guns. Whenever he was on the range on any cowboy training ground, people saw him and backed off. Not even the hotshots, who would challenge anyone. If he was honest, it was a little disappointing. One of the downsides of being a very good cowboy, he thought to himself. He was also one of the longest living cowboys. The bad ones always ended up dead, sooner rather than later. One could say he was a legend in his own right, one of the more famous Westplain men to join the cowboys. We might be even more famous if we didn't keep looking for that damn contract. Sometimes he wasn't sure if the summoning contract for horses actually existed or not. He had met a lot of people who had always told him that it didn't. He had even fought beside a shinobi who asked him what good were horses in a fight, except for ensuring a quick escape. Normally, a Westplain would have called him out on that, and Al was inclined to do so. But he didn't, and for a very simple reason. The shinobi was not being superior, condescending, or even outright arrogant. He had asked the question with a curious tone and looked at Al like he thought the cowboy had the answer. But he didn't, and he spent the next 15 years of his life thinking about that question in his idle time. What good would horses be on a modern battlefield? Could they actually have a place that wasn't taken by any other summons? The bears and the kangaroos already had the front lines, fighting as shock troops and hard hitters respectively. The jaguars have always struck from the back of an enemy army, using what nature had given them to do so. And the goats were the support that everyone wanted to come in when things weren't going well. But how could the horses, if they actually existed, be of any use? We could always have them stampede the enemy, Al thought to himself as he went around a corner, and finding the flight of stairs he knew were there. As he walked up the steps, his train of thought continued. But that would probably be bad. If they get redirected at their own forces, it would be disastrous. Of course, he also thought the horses wouldn't be dumb. He had seen the bears and the kangaroos in action, each on a separate occasion, and they were most certainly not dumb. If anything, they were more intelligent than given credit. And if there were horses out there, they were probably just as intelligent. Perhaps that was why they disappeared. They had predicted that they would be obsolete and removed themselves from becoming so. People had been telling House Westplain such things for the longest time. Yet they haven't given up the search. His musings came to a stop when he heard voices coming from a nearby room. He went still and kept his back up against the wall so he could listen in. The voice that was currently speaking wasn't Geth, he could tell. But it was a male voice. "It's for the best, I assure you," the voice said. It sounded like a birdie's voice. Less of a problem for him. "You've been saying that for the longest time, Saren," a woman's voice replied. It sounded like it wasn't in the room, which meant it was coming from a video of some sort. But it was the name that got Ael's attention. He was just outside a room where the rogue spectre was. "And I've meant it. The farther you're away from me, the safer you will be." "How can we be safe if we don't know what you're doing?" the woman demanded. "You've kept us hidden for so long, and from what?" "From something that would even frighten you," Saren told her before apparently sighing. "Please trust me." "You know I do, Saren. But please stop this madness and come to us." "It's too late to stop it. My life stands in danger at the slightest appearance of betrayal. Even talking to you would seem like it," he explained. "How would it be a betrayal to talk to us?" she asked him. There was silence following that question, only for her to break. "Your benefactor doesn't know about us. The council doesn't know about you, and I mean to keep it like that," the rogue spectre said, his voice becoming hard. "If they knew, they would use you." "You're paranoid, Saren." The woman sounded exasperated. "That paranoia has kept you alive on more than one occasion, and it's keeping you alive right now." Again, there was silence. "I know it is," she said. "But you want to come." "You know I can't," he told her. His voice turned surprising gentle. "Our time's almost done. I need to get back before he realizes that I've been gone for far too long." When he heard something be turned off, Al decided to take action. He stepped away from the wall and into the room, pumping a shell into the chamber. "You don't have any time at all," he announced to the traitor, who has his back to him. "Put your hands in the air and turn around slowly." The Thorian did as he was ordered, keeping his hands up in the air as he turned around to face the man with the shotgun. When they were looking at one another face to face, he looked curious. "Do I know you?" he asked the old cowboy. "No, you don't," Al replied, keeping the shotgun aimed firmly at his head. "I think I do." He examined the old man in front of him, looking carefully at every single feature of his face. "Ah, I do. You were one of the candidates the first time the humans tried to get one of theirs into the specters. You were dismissed because they found you too much of a racist." "I'm not a racist. I just don't make it a habit of getting to know a damn birdie." He said it like it wasn't something offending or incredibly rude. To him, it was just a fact of his life. He got along fine with the Asari and the Solarians, but don't let him near a Thorian unless you wanted his trigger finger to start getting itchy, as that other birdie was close to finding out. Ah, the wonders of the hatred humans can hold. I'm amazed your kind hasn't wiped itself out from existence yet. You certainly have the denseness and weaponry to do it, the Thorian said. He made it sound like it was a comment when they both knew it wasn't. Says the paragon of a race that decided to bomb a colony just because we broke laws we weren't aware of, he retorted, sounding exactly like the Thorian. Then he was the one who did the staring. You know, your face seems familiar. I can't see how that is possible, considering that we've never actually met. The only time Saren had seen the cowboy's face was when it was on a screen and the council had told him that the Systems Alliance wanted a human in the Spectres. I'm sure I've seen somewhere before. And I'm sure that you have not. That was the moment when it clicked inside Ael's head. Hold on, I know your face is familiar. It belonged to another birdie I met on Shangxi. He had been with that birdie that's now the council member. He was actually glad to remember that. I always did wonder if he survived those gunshots. Stomach wounds are painful. The Addy's look Saren had disappeared when he heard those words. That was you? The Thorian demanded. He remembered the day he saw his brother come back with Spiratus from Shanxi. Of the two of them, Spiratus got off lucky, having only gotten shocked from a lightning jutsu and getting a bullet in his leg. But his brother had to have surgery to get those rounds out of his stomach. Damn straight I did, he replied without an ounce of shame. The specter snarled. I ought to tear you apart for what you gave him with those wounds. You can try, Al told him. But being this is a 70mm warhorse, one of the most powerful shotguns in the galaxy, and would you blow your head clean off before you could even make it halfway across the room, you've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? He shifted his grip on his shotgun ever so slightly. Well, dia birdie? A shot rang out, and the old cowboy felt pain in his heart. When he looked down, he saw blood pouring out of it. The strength in his legs disappeared and he fell to the ground. As he felt himself grow weaker, the last thing he saw was Saren looking down at him. There was no smugness or pleased looks on the Thorian's face. If anything, he looked surprised and baffled, just as confused. Then it passed and the Thorian disregarded the dying human. He walked out of the room. As Ael's vision started growing dim, he didn't think of any past regrets, family, or even his life. Instead, the unofficial cowboy anthem played through his mind. The more he listened, the more he found himself back at that concert, 15 years old, and listening to the band play the song. The lyrics were still fresh in his ear as the day he heard them. I'm a cowboy. On a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted. Dead or alive. Wanted. Dead or Ollie. This place is a dump, Rex declared. He was in the front, leading the way alongside Naruto. Liara looked at the Krogan's back. She couldn't believe what he was saying. Rex, this place is an archaeological treasure trove, she told. The Asari kept looking around the place with bright eyes. If she could, she would be squirming like a puppy wanting to play. Can you imagine what this place would look like if it was completely cleaned and repaired? No, but I think you're already doing that for us, Tali commented, looking at the Asari. It was a little amusing to watch her behave like this. Like I said, a dump, the Krogan said again. Why couldn't anyone else see that? He had seen war zones that looked cleaner than this place. They had left the elevator only 20 minutes ago, and already they had to drop down a floor through a hole in the ground because the actual way through was blocked by collapsed rubble. Not to mention the fact that all around them, from both its state and the attack, the place looked like it was on the verge of collapse. Dump or not, Rex, this is still something the Protheans made, Naruto remarked from his left. Liara's enjoying herself, so don't ruin it for her. Wow, you just made yourself sound like her big brother, Kurama remarked from inside the blonde's head. Doesn't sound too far off the mark, he replied. Ever since they had rescued her from the abduction attempt, Liara reminded him a little bit of Konohamaru, back before the war happened. I wonder what really happened to him after the war. When his clones had raided the library, there had been a lot of history to sort through. What he could remember, Konohamaru became the Nanodame Hokage after Kakashi retired. He brought himself back to reality and looked at Liara. I'm surprised you're not moping around right now, Liara. Your girlfriend is still downstairs. What are you talking about? Liara asked with confusion in her voice. Maya's isn't my girlfriend. When did I say Maya? He asked her back with a grin. She got flustered and couldn't reply. I can see why Jiraiya used to do that to people, he silently declared. It's fun and it helps them. Yeah, and the next thing we know, you're peeking into the woman's side of the bathroom and calling it research, Kurama remarked drily. You know me better than that, Fox. I'm not Jiraiya. I don't want to try and be Jiraiya. He wasn't keen on continuing the Aika Aika series, despite what some people might wish. Just making sure, Kit, the Biju replied. Quite frankly, I don't think you're suited to be a super pervert. A super lover, on the other hand, is something entirely, Matatabi commented. He made a face at that. And how exactly am I a super lover? I haven't even. Shikaku waved it off. No need to worry about the details. Hey, the details are important. Ashley noticed the look. Commander, is everything okay? She asked. He came out of his head. Yeah, everything is fine, Ash, he told her. My tenants are being odd and stubborn. So, they were acting normal. Hey! Shikaka protested. No need to worry about the details. Kurama snickered. He's got you there. Oh, shut up. Rex glanced at Naruto. I don't know how you could stand having 9 voices inside your head, he told him. They checked the room ahead. There wasn't any Geth, so they walked in. You just have to make you've got plenty of comebacks and laugh at the stupidity, Rex. That's all you need to do. He thought about something for a second before laughing. And it's a good thing that they're in my head and not out here. I don't want to think what would happen if Shikaku got drunk. I heard that. The Biju in question shouted. Perhaps if we could focus on what we're doing and not discuss what's going on in the commander's head, Gurus suggested from the back, keeping his sniper rifle out and ready to use. There's a civilian in this building that we need to get out. I know that, Gurus, Naruto told the Thorian. Trust me, I know. I don't plan on leaving her behind in here. I made a promise to get her out, and I will get her out. Conviction ran thick through those words. He would get her out. He wasn't going to leave anyone behind again. Kurama got serious when he heard those words. Kit, I thought you got over what happened. It was war and you couldn't save everyone. You know that. He knew what the fox meant. Whenever Obito or his followers laid waste to a village or town, they wouldn't stop there. The Shinobi Alliance tried to save as many people as they could, but there were always some who were either left behind or who they were too late to save. It had been something that weighed heavily on the blonde's mind during the war, and one of the main reasons that made him keep going with his work. I know that, Kurama. I know that, he replied. Does anyone know where we are right now? I got turned around, Tali said, getting everyone's attention. She had a point. They had gone through a number of rooms because of the rubble and the ruin that seemed to clog the majority of the doors and stairs. She had lost count of the number of times they had gone left and right instead of straight. I'm not sure either, Gurus confessed. Usually, he had a good sense of direction. But that sense seemed to have removed itself as they walked through the building. Liara, you think you can help us out here? Ashley asked the Asari, turning all the attention onto her. Me? She asked back, a little surprised. Well, you're the Prothean nut here. You must have done research on their buildings at some point, right? The Kunoichi pointed out. She frowned. She didn't like that word. I'm a Prothean expert, not a nut. The nuts are the people who manage to read a little Prothean and think that they've managed to unlock the secrets of the universe. Aren't those called students? Gurus asked, face shining with faux innocence. She couldn't help but laugh at that. Yes, they are, she admitted once she got her laughter under control. It was hard to do so, for Gurus had hit what she had spoken about right on the nail, and every time she thought about it, a giggle threatened to escape her lips. Her laughter was infectious and soon, other people started to chuckle. Rex wasn't one of them. While you people are having a good time laughing your asses off, we still don't know where we are, he reminded them all with a grunt of impatience. He didn't like just standing around like a piejack who suddenly went blind. All right, give me a moment, Liara told him before closing her eyes. Tali was confused by what the archaeologist was doing. Liara, you okay? She asked. Is this some kind of Asari custom I don't know about? I'm reconstructing the rooms we've been through already and shifting them through the layouts of Prothean buildings I've looked at before, she replied, scrunching up her face into a concentrating expression. She put her pistol away and moving her hands through the air. And your hands? It's something that helps me concentrate. Now please let me. Everyone fell silent as she moved her hands. It looked like she was holding a 3D image, spinning it around to see from different angles. The Protheans had always built their buildings on a geometrical pattern, one that always stayed constant. And how does that help us? Rex asked, annoyance creeping into his voice. This was taking far too long for him. Let her do her thing, Rex, Naruto told the Krogan shortly. Again with the big brother act, Kurama remarked. You do realize that she isn't actually your family, right? That's never stopped me before. He had had friends from all over the elemental countries before and during the war, and he felt them to be precious to him. Now, Liara and everyone else were beginning to feel the same to him. No, it didn't, the fox admitted, remembering how Naruto had thrown his defiance at Obito because of his friends. The man had quit the field and spent the rest of the war trying to show pointless that kind of thinking was. Cammy, am I glad that didn't work. Liara stopped moving her hands and opened her eyes. If we go through that door over there, It will take us to an area that should lead us to the other side of the building, she told everyone, pointing at a door to their left. The green light showed that it was active, and it was cleared of rubble. Should? Ashley repeated, raising her eyebrow questioningly. Liara faltered a little underneath that gaze. Well, there is a lot of rubble in the building and it stands to reason that there would be some in the tunnel. But there should be more than a few doors in the area, so there's a possibility that one of them will be operational, she explained, sounding unsure of herself. I don't like it, Gers said. He wasn't frowning yet, but his face was getting there. We're already off course from where Al went. The Kalba had left markers for them to follow, but they had to change course when the tunnel, the latest marker they found, had collapsed. They had only gone farther and farther away from there since. Ashley looked like she wanted to say something, but thought the better of it. If we go this way, odds are we'll find a way back to where Al went, Liara said, never noticing Ashley closing her mouth. And then we'll be back on track. Then lead the way, Liara, Naruto told her. She swung her head at him. Me? She asked. Her eyes were wide with surprise. She hadn't expected that kind of response. She was more used to people ignoring what she had to offer because she was so young. But Naruto was not like that. You're the one who knows how the Protheans built their buildings. You're the one who will lead us through it, he told her. Oh, okay, she said, the surprise leaving her. It was replaced with nervousness. In all the time she was on his team, never once had she been in the front. She had mostly kept to the back or the middle, where her biotics could be used as support. She hesitantly stepped to the front, right between Rex and Naruto, and took the lead, heading for the door. Everyone got back into position and fell in behind her. The door opened, revealing a tunnel-like corridor that sloped upwards as it went on. This is promising, she said, recognizing the tunnel from the diagrams she had studied. Let's keep moving, Liara, Naruto said from beside her. We can't stop here. Yes, you're right. She was a little embarrassed by that reminder. They quickly moved into the corridor, only for her to be surprised when the door closed behind them and engulfing them all in darkness. She faltered when she saw nothing but darkness. Naruto didn't. Lights! The blonde barked. Beams of light flickered into existence, originating from their weapons. Feeling a little stupid, Liara pulled out her own weapon and flicked on her own light. She noticed that the only person who didn't have a light on was Naruto. Commander, shouldn't you have a light as well? She asked him. He shook his head. I had that piece taken off. I didn't see a reason to have it on. Well, now you do, Rex said with a Krogan smirk on his face. Rex, the lights are for the benefit of the non-shinobi amongst us, he replied without missing a beat. Those who are shinobi amongst us can see better in the dark than a civilian, or any other kind of solider. He turned his head to look at Liara. Take the lead, he told her. His sunglasses stood out starkly against his face in the lights. His pistol was still out, and at the ready. Yes, sir. The slope in front of them wasn't steep enough to make them regret going this way, but it wasn't so gentleness to make them think that they weren't on a slope in the first place. It was the kind of slope that reminded them to keep walking upwards but not that far upwards. When the slope ended, the corridor still went on. But it was on a level plane now. It didn't make them any less relaxed. How far away are we? Ashley asked Liara. Not that far away, the Asari answered, keeping the pace forward. She was confident that they would get there soon. Her confidence was rewarded when a door soon came into sight. See? It's there. She quickly approached the door, stepping through when it opened. And she got a gun pointed at her head. Don't move a single muscle, the frightened human woman holding the gun told her. She was wearing a science uniform, but that didn't stop her from shaking. Before either one of them could make a move, Naruto made his. He stepped around Liara, disarmed the human and knocking the gun into the air, kicked her back, grabbed the airborne gun in his free hand, and pointed both at her, all in 3 seconds. Stay perfectly still, he ordered her. Instead of freaking out or panicking, the woman actually breathed a huge sigh of relief. Oh, thank the Allfather, she said. Sorry, I thought you were going to be one of those Varon, or Geth coming to get me. I couldn't take any chances, she explained, smiling sheepishly. No hard feelings? What are you doing here? Liara asked her. It's my own fault. Everyone else was running, and I stayed to back up data. Next thing I knew, the Geth ship latched on and the power went out. She looked a little embarrassed. I was trapped. I tried to get out, but the way I had used was blocked. It's fairly easy to get out, Gurus assured her. There's barely any Geth around, surprisingly. They had encountered next to none when they made their way through the building, and he felt uneasy about that. It's not the Geth, it's the energy field they put up. They don't want anyone else getting access to the... Her mouth shut instantly, stopping herself from finishing that sentence. Ooh, I smell a dirty secret, Shikaku said, grinning widely. Sure that's not you? Naruto asked the Tanuki. He took some small pleasure at the Tanuki's annoyed look. You can tell us, he told the woman. His voice was gentle, reassuring. She shook her head. I can't. Yes, you can. No, I can't, she insisted, shaking her head again. It's Exogeni's policy to never let outside people know of the current projects. You can trust me, he assured her. I'm only here for the Geth. But if I want to rid of them and this energy field you were talking about, you have to tell me what it is they're looking for. To ensure their trustworthiness, he brought his gun down and handed hers off to Ashley. She hesitated for a moment, looking at him uncertainly. She didn't know why, but she felt she could trust him. Okay, she finally agreed. Oh look, I see a super lover, the Ichibi sang out. Shut up, he told him. I got him, Kurama declared, pouncing on the Tanuki. Soon they were fighting and the fox had the upper hand. Ignoring them and the encouraging shouts from his other tenants, Naruto looked at the woman. What are the Geth trying to find out that they don't want anyone else looking for it? He asked her. I don't know for certain, but I think that they're here for the Thorian, she answered. What's a Thorian? Gurus asked. He had a bad feeling that he wasn't going to like the answer. It's an indigenous life form. Exogeny was studying it. It was a short answer and didn't really reveal much. She glanced around, looking for danger. Can we please go now? We need to get out past that field already. Tell us about the Thorian, Rex rumbled, lifting his shotgun in a silent threat. Rex, there's no need for that, Naruto told the Krogan quietly. The battle master grumbled, but lowered his weapon anyway. Please tell us, the blonde asked her. I really don't know much about it, she answered, her voice filled with sincere honesty. I think it's some kind of plant being. I do know that's it old. Thousands of years even. So there's something out there that's older than you? Gyuki wondered aloud. He didn't joke about it. He was actually curious. The other Biju, including the two who were fighting, were wondering the same thing. What do you call the Protheans? He asked. Extinct. Fair enough, he conceded. Do you have any idea why the Geth would want this Thorian? I don't know. It's just a plant. Exogeny was studying it, but I didn't think that they found anything special. Commander? Called out Tali. We have a problem. What is it, Tali? He asked without looking back at her. We can't go back the way we came. Now he looked back. What he saw was what he could only describe as a blue wall blocking off the entrance to the tunnel. That's the energy field, the woman told them. It was the same as every other time she had been blocked off. Well, that's annoying, Gurus declared. He doubted that even the commander's strongest attack could break through it. Naruto looked back at the woman. Is there a way to get rid of that field? I'm not sure, she answered. I think the Geth ship might be the one that's powering it. I saw the Geth laying down power cables everywhere in the building. She paused and a small thoughtful expression appeared. You could follow the cables, but the Geth are everywhere in the building. At least we'll finally be able to meet some of them. I was getting bored, Rex said, making her look at him funny. I'm a Krogan woman. It's what I do. And he writes poetry too, Liara chimed in, earning herself a glare from him. What? I saw you muttering verses and typing them into your Omni tool. That just made him glare harder at her. That's enough, Naruto told them. Once he was sure Rex stopped glaring, he looked at the woman. I'll leave a clone here with you to make sure you stay safe. Once the field goes down, he'll take you back to safety. Thank you for that, she said. Her face turned melancholic. I had just hoped that she had gotten out. Who are you talking about? Ashley asked. There are other survivors. There are? She almost couldn't believe those words. It showed in her voice. It was filled with both hope and dread. Yeah, they're in the basement and/or garage area. Please tell me, is there a woman named Juliana Bainham down there? she all but begged them. When he heard the question, Naruto had an idea about who she was. Is your name Lisbeth? He asked her. How do you that? Your mother asked us to look for you. She knew that you were still alive. He smiled as he spoke. It was enough to make her smile as well. Oh, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, she exclaimed, her words coming out of her mouth in jumble. I'm so happy to hear that. I thought that I was the only who was still alive. You still need to stay here while we take down the field. He quickly folded his hands into the old hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A clone appeared right in front of him with a cloud of smoke. Stay here and keep her safe, he ordered the clone. When the field is down, take her to the elevator and wait until we arrive. Roger that, the clone replied with a quick salute. He would have rolled his eyes, but that would have been redundant. We're heading farther into the building, he told his team. Hopefully, there are some walls we can knock through to get around locked doors. That was one of the things he found annoying here. Even though there were holes in the walls he could easily step through, they were never in walls that were adjacent to another room or corridor. Here, take my ID, Lisbeth said, holding out the ID in question. It should help get past those locked doors. That way, you don't have to knock down any walls. But the commander loves doing such things. It helps him relax, Gura said with a completely straight face. It sounded like a joke, especially how the people around him looked exasperated or trying to hold in laughter. You should probably take it anyway, she said, still holding the ID out for him to take. He was kidding, Naruto told her, taking the ID from her while throwing a look at the Thorian. He examined the ID, not chakra-coded. The doors were perfectly operational when Exogeny arrived, so there was no need to go that far, she told him. Then she frowned slightly. At least, that was what they told us. I thought they were being cheap. Thanks anyway. She looked right. Varon! She screamed, eyes widening fearfully. They turned and saw the pack of Varon coming straight at them. They had smelled fresh blood and were coming in for the kill. Naruto starting shooting and the pack scattered. He was glad for the training the academy put him through. Usually a person was either right or left-handed, but the shinobi academies in his time trained their students to be able to use both hands with equal proficiency. They just had a preference. It was that training that allowed him to pass his gun from hand to hand. That way, he could kill the Varon he aimed at. And thanks to his efforts learning how to properly shoot a gun, the majority of his shots struck. The Varons he hit went down in 2 to 3 bullets each. But he didn't get them all. 2 survived and charged straight at him. Thinking fast, he flipped the pistol around, holding it by the barrel, and took a stance that he had only gotten halfway figured out. The first Varon lunged at him, its jaws going straight for his face. It never got that close. He swung the pistol at the Varon's jaw, breaking it. He pulled a kunai with his free, plunging it into the Varon's eye. If he hadn't heard many like it, the scream that followed would have been chilling. As the Varon crashed to the ground, he swung the hilt at its head, breaking through the skull and hitting the brain. It was dead within seconds. But while the blonde's back was turned, the second Varon made its move. It leapt, intending to latch itself onto his back and weaken him from there. But he heard the sound the creature made when it crouched. When it leapt, so did he. The difference was that while it leapt for him, he leapt to the side. They landed back on the ground at the same time. The Varon instantly turned and leapt again. He saw it, and raised his legs up into the air, spitting them apart. Please let it be dumb enough to actually try it, he prayed. Why should you worry about that? Kurama asked him. It's not like you're going to die from this. I would die of embarrassment if you did. Thank you for the vote of confidence there, Furball. Luckily, the Varon was stupid to leap through his legs. They snapped closed around it in a scissor hold, and with a small grunt of effort, he slammed the creature down to the ground. Its struggle to get free didn't last long. He spun the gun back around, grabbing the hilt again, pressed the barrel up against its head and fired off 1 round. Everyone else just watched silently as the Varon went still. Lisbeth was the only one who looked stunned. She had never seen anyone take down a pack of Varon like that, and alone too. The blonde's team, on the other hand, had seen him do that before to different enemies, so it wasn't new to them. In fact, if they were being honest, they were becoming rather blasé about it. Next time, aim lower and a little to the left, Rex told the blonde. That's where the heart is. How about telling me that beforehand? He asked as he untangled himself from the dead Varon, pushing it away with his foot once he was free. And where would the fun be there? The Krogan asked back, a full-blown grin on his face. Saren made his way quickly through the ruined corridors, heading straight for the small shuttle. Just as he reached the balcony where the shuttle was, a Geth came up to him and stopped, waiting silently. Thankfully, he knew what to do when they did something like. Report, he ordered, stopping to look at it. Saren Prophet, hostiles have been found in lower sections of building, it answered in its metallic voice. I'm aware. He found me and was taken care of. But even though he said the words, what he remembered baffled him. Who was it that opened fire on the old human and killed him? Whoever did it was definitely a good shot for being able to put a bullet through the human's heart from a distance where they could not be seen. Negative, the Geth replied. Multiple hostiles are in building. They are currently making their way up through lower sections of building to where ship has been stationed. That was not good news. If they found the ship and destroyed it, the field would fall and any survivors still inside would flee. Ensure that the ship is protected. Otherwise, find the hostiles and eliminate them. Acknowledged, Saren Prophet. The Geth turned and walked away. Hold, the rogue spectre said, making it stop. Who are the hostiles? It is unknown of who all hostiles are. But they are led with Shinobi Commander Naruto Uzumaki and Dr. Liara Tsoni, the unit answered. It walked away, leaving him alone. He stood there on the balcony, thinking over what he had just heard. Perhaps it was a mistake to allow Benezia to send Geth to retrieve her daughter, he thought to himself. That might have been tinged with annoyance and anger if he wasn't the trained man that he was. Instead, he thought it with a cool detachment. He knew the reasons Benezia gave him for retrieving her daughter were solid ones. Despite not really being recognized for her work, Liara was one of the foremost experts on the Protheans. In fact, she would have been curious and excited to see a piece of Prothean technology or structure that she had never seen before. But even though he was given these reasons, he knew the true reason why Benezia wanted to retrieve her daughter. She wanted her to be safe, to be out of the way when what was coming came. A tad sentimental and emotional for him. However, he had always believed that it was never good to lock away your emotions, only keep them under control. He had done so and he had lived this long as a specter, although he had his moments. He continued towards the shuttle, letting the wind blow past him. He let himself enjoy the sensation for a moment, or it was moments like those that reminded him about why he was doing all of this. It was for the sake of the entire galaxy. He may be called a traitor, a rogue specter, or a madman, but he was doing all of this for the sake of the galaxy, and he did not care about whether he'd be branded a hero or a villain. As he stepped into the shuttle through the hatch, he stopped, feeling someone's eyes on him. He turning around, he only saw a Geth unit on the balcony looking at the shuttle before turning and leaving. He found it odd for the unit to just be staring at him like that. But he thought nothing more of it. He had to leave. He entered the shuttle, letting the hatch close automatically behind him. Take off, he ordered the Geth unit who was piloting the shuttle. As he sat down, he felt the shuttle quietly lift off. His hand went to his Omni tool, activating it and sending a transmission. Yes, Saren? Asked Benezia when her appearance appeared. Liara has been found, he told the Asari matriarch. She's following the human specter. Whatever relief might have shown in her eyes at the first piece of news died away at the second piece. If that is the case, then she is the enemy, she declared with her eyes going flat at those words. Agreed, he replied. Go to the project site and keep an eye out on there until I get there. How long will it take? Within 48 hours. With those 3 words, he deactivated the Omni tool and sat back in the seat. As the shuttle flew on, he settled into a pensive mood and began to think. Liara wasn't that great of a loss to their cause. There were plenty of people who were versed in the Protheans. He had just gone to Liara first because Benezia. But it was the human she was following that made him stop and think. He had read enough about Naruto Uzumaki to think he knew the man well, despite not actually knowing him. In a way, he now had the utmost respect for the blonde, as a warrior and what he had done to save his world. What Saren was trying to do right now was similar to what he had done, but he probably wouldn't see it like that. I wonder, though, the Thorian mused to himself. If I am given the chance, could I convince him to join our mission? It might be possible. A little difficult, he could admit, but possible all the same. If he could make the humans see what he was trying to do, there was a chance that Naruto would join him. If it worked, his plan could go a lot smoother. The unit watched as the shuttle left the planet. It had its charge's target in sight. It could have taken the shot. But it didn't. It was logical. Eliminate the source of the problem and the rest would follow. But the unit also knew that it couldn't be the one who eliminated Saren. It would have to be its charge. The galaxy would accept that. It turned back into the building. It had to find its charge again. That was the mission. Using Lisbeth's card, Naruto and his team were able to find a tunnel that wasn't blocked by the energy field. It was just as dark as the one Liara found, making everyone turn the lights on their weapons back on, even Naruto. He kept the pistol he had taken from Lisbeth. At the end of the tunnel was a door, and it was locked. The specter amongst them took out the ID. "Please let this work," he said quietly, waving the ID over the panel. It went from red to green as the ID passed, and the door opened. "Looks like I don't have to do any hacking after all," Tali remarked, a little disappointed. No one said anything. They moved through the door and entered a large room. Naruto quickly scanned everything. It may have been an eating area, if the long tables on the ground were any indicator. In any case, it was just as ruined as the other rooms they'd been through. At the other end of the room was a flight of stairs that went upwards. "You know, I'm beginning to get a little worried now," Geras stated as he looked around the room. "I mean, where the hell are all the Geth?" "I don't know, Geras," Naruto honestly admitted. He was getting nervous from not seeing any of the Geth. For a building that was supposedly swarmed by them, they weren't anywhere to be found. "We must have gotten inside the energy field," Ashley suggested, looking around with her rifle in hand. "That actually makes a good deal of sense," Tali agreed. "If we are inside the field and they don't know that we are, they wouldn't do anything in response." She sounded relieved, which she was. "I can't believe that I'm thinking this, but thank goodness for Geth practicality," she thought to herself. Naruto thought about that. He didn't know exactly how the energy field everyone was talking worked. That kind of talk had been Sakura's and Sasuke's area. But he did pay attention to some of the things they told him, such as the point of origin, which was probably the ship, and how it took the shape of a sphere. "How could we have gotten past it?" he asked aloud, thinking about how they came this way. "You're thinking that the energy field is shaped like a sphere, aren't you, sir?" Ashley asked him, seeing the look of concentration on his face. He lost that look when he turned his head to her. "Yes," he answered. "Commander, a Geth energy field can be manipulated into taking any shape they need," Tali explained, seeing what was wrong with his line of thinking. "It doesn't need to be just in a shape of a sphere." "Ah, I see," he said, feeling a little more than embarrassed about that. "Not one word of you, Shikaku." "What?" "I wasn't going to say anything," the Tanuki cried in protest. "You were about to. I just know it." "No, I wasn't. Don't you have any faith in me?" "Very little," he said shortly. Actually, in his defense, he wasn't going to say anything, Kit, Kurama told his Jinchuriki. "You can't blame me for making sure." He had been so sure that the Ichibi was going to say something rude while laughing his ass off. "No, we can't." "Speak for yourself," Shikaku said to himself. But it was loud to be heard and it got him a smack upside the head from the Kyubi. "Oh. What? What was that for?" "No back-talking from you," Kurama told him. "Let's keep moving," Naruto said aloud, heading for the stairs. Geras was right behind him. "I think we have a bit of climb ahead of us," Geras commented, looking up the staircase. It seemed to go straight up to the ceiling. "What tipped you off?" Rex asked with a snort, seeing what they were seeing as well. "You mean besides the obvious?" the Thorian asked back with a roll of his eyes. "Less talking and more walking from the both of you," Naruto said without looking at either of them. He started up the stairs, keeping his pace controlled. They matched his pace as they followed up behind him. It was a long climb. The stairs were partially covered in rubble, making everyone careful about where they stepped. At some points, they had to hop over a missing step, which was a little more difficult for Rex. They went past several floors that were completely destroyed. By the time they had reached the 10th or 11th level, they had lost count. Some of them were beginning to feel like their legs had been set on fire. "Can we please stop for a minute here?" Liara asked as they came off of the stairs. She looked at the next flight up and just wanted to stop. Don't be a wimp. This is nothing, Rex told her. You try going up that number of stairs at a run with my kind of weight. It will be hell, trust me. Stupid machine! Roared a frustrated voice from a nearby hall. Access encrypted files. Everyone went still when they heard that. Rex, was that you? Tali asked the Krogan. It sounded like a Krogan's voice. He looked over at her with a level stare. Does it look like I have a machine with encrypted files with me right now? The sarcasm in his voice was so thick that they were surprised it wasn't dripping from his mouth. Just checking. Everyone, quiet, Naruto ordered, looking at where the voice had come from. It was a hallway they had no clear view of. Backs against the wall, and keep them there. They all did as ordered. Once his back felt the concrete, the blonde began scooting down the side and peeked around the corner. The voice belonged to a Krogan who was standing in front of a 6 terminal. No, I don't want to review protocol. The 6 itself took the shape of a man with the color of red on its skin. I am unable to comply, it told the Krogan. Please contact your supervisor. Damn it. Tell me what I want or I'll blast your virtual ass into actual dust. The Krogan threatened with a fist. I don't think he can actually do that, Komi commented. His shots would just go through the thing and hit the wall, right? At this point, I don't think the guy cares, Sun replied. He'd probably to try and punch it as well. Krogans seem to get stupid when they get angry. Don't say that in front of Rex, Naruto cautioned the Yonbi. He can't hear me. I can make you two meet. He pulled his head back and looked at his team. There's a Krogan arguing with a 6 terminal and he's a little more than pissed. Rex, take a look at him, he ordered. The Battlemaster quickly and quietly moved to the other side of the hallway so he could get a better look. The armor says that he's a commander in battle, but the way he's arguing with the 6 says that he has a short temper and is at the end of it. So, he's a pup who's arrogant enough to think he's untouchable, he rattled off as he examined the other Krogan. Tali, hack into his armor systems and make him lose his shields, the blonde ordered. Already on it, she said in reply, her Omni tool on and her fingers dancing across the keypad. Gurus and Ash, line up for your shots, he told them both. Once I give the signal, shoot him in the knees. You got it, Commander, Gurus said as he and Ashley readied their sniper rifles, holding them with the barrels up in the air. Liara, stay put. Let's see if we can take this guy before we need you. He stepped away from the wall once he was finished speaking. What are you going to do? Rex asked, looking at him with suspicion. He didn't get to live this long without looking at everyone with suspicion. I'm going to talk to him, he answered. He walked down the hallway towards the Krogan, who was still angry with the 6. I will rip you into so many little pieces, they won't be able to find all of you. The young pup, as Rex called him, shouted at the terminal. It was on the verge of being called a scream. Clearly, he wasn't about to lose his temper. He had already lost it. Please contact your supervisor for a level 4 exemption pass or make an appointment with, the 6 told him, still using that same calm voice. Arf. Stupid machine! He roared, shaking his hands in the air. If there is nothing else, please step aside. There is a queue forming behind you for the use of this console. What? He turned around to see Naruto coming at him. Oh good, he said. I really need to kill someone. He started reaching for his shotgun when 2 shots rang out and he fell to the ground. Naruto walked up to him as he trying to get up back on his feet. What is it you were looking for? He asked, pulling out a pistol and pointing it at the Krogan's head. His other hand was out of sight. Go fuck yourself, the Krogan spat at him. What were you looking for? He asked again, ignoring what he had just heard. What makes you think I would tell you? The fact that there is a gun pointed at your head and I will open fire if you don't answer the question. What were you looking for? The Krogan snorted, and then hissed in pain. You're an idiot. I'm a Krogan. A paltry bullet won't stop me. He rose back onto his feet with a roar, whether it was pain-induced or bloodlust didn't really matter, and tried to attack him. Naruto simply lowered the gun and brought out his other hand, which had a fully formed Rasengan spinning a few inches above the palm. He slammed the jutsu into the Krogan's face and held it there. When the jutsu was done, the face was virtually non-existent. That does, he told the now dead Krogan. Great, now you're doing one-liners, Kurama commented drily. He walked up to the terminal, stepping over the body. Exogeny Corporation reminds all staff that the use of jutsu and the discharging of weapons while on company property is strictly forbidden, the Six stated. Welcome back, Research Assistant Elizabeth Bainham. What can I do for you? Those words made him stop and stare at the terminal. Did you grow breasts when I wasn't looking? The QB asked him, getting sniggers from the other Biju. Not since the last time I used the Oiroku no Jutsu, sexy technique, he replied. That was beside the point. How do you that I'm Lisbeth? He asked the Six, deciding to go with what it assumed. Your access card identifies as Elizabeth Bainham. So it automatically scanned the ID he had been given. Surprising for him, but he could work with it. Alright, what was he trying to get to? He asked, nudging the corpse with his foot. Fetching data, the Six said while the others joined him. The previous user was attempting to access details on the study of subject species 37, the Thorian. Why do I have a bad feeling about what will be said in the next few minutes? Isabu asked aloud. Does it look like we know the answer to that? Saiken asked back. What did you tell the Krogan about the Thorian? Naruto asked the Six. There was nothing to tell the previous user. Aside from lacking proper access, there has been no new data available on Species 37. All sensors monitoring the observation post at the Zhu's Hope colony have been inactive for several cycles. That got his attention. What? What does the colony have to do with the Thorian? Species 37 is located within the substructure of the Zhu's Hope colony. See? I knew it, the Sanbai said. If Gurus could have heard him, he would have agreed. I want all available information you have on the Thorian, right now. Naruto ordered the Six, his voice coming out as a bark. The Thorian is a simple plant life form that exhibits a sentient behavior uncommon with other flora. Through dispersion and the eventual inhalation of spores, it can infect and control other organisms, including humans. The Zhu's Hope Control Group has yielded interesting results. Before sensors went offline, almost 85% of all test subjects were infected. There was silence in the hall as he and his team just stared at the Six. Are you telling me that Exogeny knew that their people were getting infected, and went with it? The Spectre demanded, his voice rising at the end. It was deemed necessary to assess the true potential of Species 37, the Six told him. Its calm voice never changed pace or tempo. It was a machine. It couldn't. That didn't stop him from getting mad. I guess that explains why the colonists had been acting weird and not wanting to leave, Ashley remarked, remembering how the few colonists she had spoken to had been like. She thought it was odd, but her main concern had been more about how Al was there at that point. Naruto didn't say anything to that. Instead, he lifted his fingers to the calm Quan Misli. Come in, he said aloud. But he only got static. Quan Misli, this is Commander Uzumaki, respond. He still got the static. Commander, shouldn't you contact Joker? Liara asked him. He doesn't have to. I already tried, Gurus told the Asari. Taking his fingers away from his comm, I think the field is blocking out our comm connection. If we want to talk to Joker or the others downstairs, we'll probably need to take it down. Then let's get a move on, Naruto ordered, walking past the Six terminal at a brisk pace. They followed him down the hallway, keeping up with his pace. He doesn't seem to be happy, Tali commented quietly. Can you blame him? Liara asked her. They had both read the human history books. They knew all about the infinite Tsukuyomi. And now, they've come across something that was incredibly similar, if not outright the same. She shook her head. No, I can't. Hey, keep up the pace, Rex told the two of them. They had fallen to the back of the team and were about to fall behind. Something tells me that the blondie is about to blow up and I want to see it. They shared a look. Of course, the Krogan would want to see it. We're coming, Rex, Tali told him. Maya was outside the safe area, doing a quick patrol. Once she saw there weren't Geth incoming, she went back into the tunnel. Still clear, she told Caden, passing him at the barricade. Good to know, he replied, keeping his eyes on the tunnel. She might say it was clear, but his training told him to keep a lookout. She walked back into the safe area. With Caden, her, and Quan Misli taking separate watches with what remained of the Exogeny security, the two who weren't on watch didn't have much to do but check their equipment and observe the people there. And she was more inclined to let Quan Misli do the people observing. She was much better at it than her or Caden. Empty again? The hunter asked the swagman as she sat down. Yeah, Maya answered, propping her rifle up by her side. Honestly, it seems like that any Geth that had been attacking us disappeared when we got here. The Mako hasn't even been touched. Quan Misley nodded absently. She was more focused on watching the people. They were all scared but also hopeful. They had been since they got here. Have you gotten any contact from the commander? None whatsoever. Hell, I risked stepping outside onto the Skyway to see if I could get through. All I'm getting is static. Well, that's annoying, she remarked. Her eyes found Zhang and watched him with interest as he stood over a small console. What he's doing over there? She asked herself. Something got your attention, Quan Misley? Maya asked, lowering her voice when she realized that the other end of the conversation wasn't really paying attention. Yeah, him. She subtly gestured at Zhang. The swagman glanced at the man with her eyes. He does seem a little agitated, she noted quietly. That would be putting it lightly. The man looked like he was about to jump out of his own skin. He was nervous about something, she just didn't know what it was. She briefly considered pumping the information out of him, but swiftly dismissed that idea. You don't have the go-ahead for that, she reminded herself. The last time that happened, her whole squadron got in trouble. You think we should do anything about it? Maya asked her. She shook her head. I'm not doing anything against him until I get orders from the commander. The days of acting on her own were long gone. Just then, the static in her comm cleared and the commander's voice came. Quan Misley, do you read me? He asked. Speak of the commander, and the commander will appear, Maya said with a grin on her face. Quan Misley ignored her. This is Quan Misley, she replied, subtly placing her fingers on the comm. What do you need, commander? You said that you're good with interrogations. How good is good? He asked. I got results. That was what mattered. Anyone who knew how to read between the lines knew that meant the person she interrogated didn't live after she was done sometimes. And judging from he said next, Commander Uzumaki could either read very well or not at all. Then I want you to interrogate that Zhang guy on everything he knows about the Thorian. I want him singing by the time I get back. There was a cold fury in his voice, something that made his hatred shine through. Before she could say anything, the comm went dead. She stood up from where she sat. Questions ran through her head, such as why is he angry? And what's a Thorian? But she didn't give priority to them. She had been given orders to get information, and she always followed her orders. She walked over to Zhang and grabbed his shoulder, spinning him around. What are you? He began to ask, only to be interrupted when she buried her foot in his stomach, sending him to the ground. Time to get to work, she thought to herself as she grabbed his arm and twisted his arm around his back, just 2 inches short of breaking it. Codex Entry, Religion the Silent One. Amongst the many different gods the tribes of the Great Jungle worship, one they all hold in common as chief of deities is the Silent One. He is, admittedly, one of the more unique deities as he is portrayed as hooded, is both the deity of life and death, and has no actual name. While the Silent One is said to be the chief of the gods, having been of the first ones to have come into existence, he does not lead them. Rather, he keeps to himself and hunts alone in the jungle. According to the legends, he silently gives life to you and he will silently take life from you. Despite the apparent reclusiveness of the Silent One, all warriors of the great jungle tribes value him above all others. He is prayed to daily for guidance and strength and is often used in profanity, although the phrase name of the Silent One is a contradiction since he is supposed to be nameless. Any oath that is sworn to the Silent One is taken with the utmost seriousness, and if it is broken, the oath breaker is killed immediately. Until they came into their recent incarnation, the hunters were said to be the chosen warriors of the Silent One. See, hunters, having been given holy orders to protect the great jungle, or as close as you get to it is often at the end of those orders, which has always been a mystery to the rest of the galaxy. The hunters were respected throughout the great jungle because of those orders and it was deemed an honor to join them. According to most legends of the great jungle, the one deity that the Silent One has clashed with most often is the god of chaos, Diablo. But while the stories often tell of their epic battles that ripped the sky, split the sea, and or cracked the earth, they do not tell of any hatred between the two. They only tell of what Diablo plans and of how the Silent One must step in to stop him. In fact, the tribes of the Great Jungle do not even consider their fights to be something to be worried about. See, belief of deities' appearances in reality. When asked about why such battles weren't taken seriously, The speaker of the gods, the high priest or priestess for the great jungle, Lynn Sanchez said, they're brothers. They're bound to drive each other crazy.